that people like illustrate for him
Right.
is insane. And also what I read people go through and what I hear that people do for Sheikh Salik, it's really remarkable. And they do this only because he's doing, just trying to keep the message of Islam alive.
Right. Well, I think, anyways, we are recording and live on Facebook right now. So, internet's welcome to. I took a few days off. So a few days ago, I put a thing on my Instagram story because I've been like going really hard on this channel, probably for the past month or so. I think, like trying to put out at least something daily, even not a video, but like a weekly podcast, post streams, and all that kind of stuff, right? So what happened was that a couple of days ago, I found out Oracle has this free class for cloud infrastructure. So, and it expired yesterday. So I went ahead and like put like podcasting on hold for a few days. We can get into that. But our guest today is AbdulRahim Harara. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah. AbdulRahim. Don't mind the last name, but AbdulRahim is fine.
Yeah. Okay. And AbdulRahim and I, we connect. What did we talk about 6 weeks ago? I think probably originally, we didn't know about each other. There was it's an interesting story how we kind of like cross paths.
Yeah. I can go ahead and share it.
Sure, you go for it.
Yeah. So we a friend of ours, they made a post on social media which highlighted a clip from your podcast show.
Right.
Mad
Mamluks.
Mad Mamluks.
Right.
And it was kind of like on a polarizing subject.
Mm-hmm.
And you made some strong statements that were probably taken out of context.
Right.
Given the overall conversation, right?
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you're in the snippet culture.
Mm-hmm.
As we both discussed, what you say online and what you write online travels very quickly, and the context doesn't travel with it. So the words that you say or the actions that you take, they travel very quickly and it spreads, but people don't know the context in which you said it. So oftentimes what may happen is that you might have said something and you meant no ill intent by it, and lo and behold, everyone's upset at you. To be honest, I don't remember the exact comment that you made.
Right.
But I do remember it was something along the lines of a misalignment of an understanding of what racism or structural racism is, or that may not be present within demographics or within the world. So, go ahead and like speak to the speak to the clip. I'd love to add my thoughts after.
Sure. Yeah, I'm actually trying to like real quick. So as I'm talking, I'm trying to make sure I'm actually sharing this so you can. Let me see here. So we are on. Do you see we're on Facebook?
Let me see. Let me log on.
You know what? I don't think we are.
Oh, I see that you were live. I only see that you were live.
Let me try. Well, I've recorded all this, so this is fine. But I'm gonna go ahead and share on a page. I'm gonna ask you to go through that real quick again, just so we have it.
Okay, no worries.
All right. Apologize for that.
No apologies. So we're not live right now.
We're not. No, I'm just recording. Just
okay.
I just want to make sure that like yeah, I was going live and then it like booted me off. Cause I think I was like, it's like I was trying to go live too many times at once. You know what? I'm just gonna go the old school way and add a title for our live.
Do you want to do just a Facebook Live? How do you integrate with Zoom?
So I pay for it.
Okay.
There's if you pay the $15 a month Zoom package, you can whatchamacallit, you have the option of then live streaming to Facebook and YouTube.
Oh wow.
Sneakers, careers in tech.
Maybe so put Palestine, race,
sneakers, tech careers. Yeah, right. A lot of stuff here. Go live.
Or even if you want, you can throw meeting is now being. Yeah, I see it live on Facebook.
That's streaming live on Facebook. It'll start going real quick. I'll do a re-intro to you. All right, and let me just check the page. Are we on here? Yeah, if you could just share it to if you see it now, you can just share it, and then you should be good to go.
Let me see. Yep, I see it.
Cool. Yeah, just go ahead and share it to your page. In the meantime, by the way, if you're from the Bay Area, I haven't worn this hat in like 5 years.
Oh, wow. Where'd you get it from?
I bought it from I have like 40 snapbacks, fitteds, and stuff, right? So I think the New Era store or something. They used to have
I was born in the city.
Really?
Yeah. So we call. So
what is the city? Like
the
Oakland?
city is San Francisco.
Oh.
San Francisco. So like San Francisco has a few nicknames, right? We have San Francisco, we have Frisco, we have the SFC, the Sucker Free City, the SCO. I don't know. I think in the city, I'm pretty sure there's a lot more. There's a lot more nicknames.
Yeah.
But the city is the most classic, yet like classic, and now it's known to be like the most native one because there's so many transplants.
Yeah.
And people who came from other parts of America and the world.
Sure.
And they came for the tech money.
Yeah.
And they don't really contribute to the culture.
Right.
So amongst the native people of San Francisco, we say the city and everyone gets it. But if you were ever to say the city to someone who isn't from here, they'd be like, what city? And that's how you know you met someone who's not from San Francisco or the Bay Area. Because even in the Bay, people say the city. Like if you live in Oakland and you say, hey, I'm going to the city, like you're not going to Berkeley. You're going to San Francisco.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So like I actually, last time I wore this hat was during the first, I think the first time the Warriors won the title. Would they beat like the Heat? Was it the Heat maybe? When they beat LeBron? I forget. I forget who they beat the first time around. Or was it Cleveland? I think they played Cleveland.
You're first title. The wrong guy.
But like I didn't wear it because I didn't want to be perceived as a fair weather fan. Yeah. And I'm not a Warriors fan. But when I buy like t-shirts or hats of certain like sports teams, I have my favorite sports teams, but like I also like it based on the cities I like that I've been to and I've got a vibe with. And I've been to the Bay. I've been to San Francisco. We went in 2011 actually. One of the best vacations I've been on, probably the best vacation, maybe one of the best vacations in the U.S. at least. And I was like, I've got like Giants hats and a Warriors hat. I'm a 49ers fan. So I'm definitely in that sphere. But anyways, let's go ahead. So AbdulRahim Harada, is our guest today on this live stream. Real quick before we get into how we met, give the listeners and the viewers a quick 30-second spiel about who you are, in case people aren't familiar with your background.
My name's AbdulRahim. I'm just I live in the Bay, Muslim. I act and I work in tech. That's pretty much it. There's not much more, but there's a lot of good to come from this conversation.
Right. I mean, I had a perception you're also involved in like activism and like standing up for like people who are like being neglected or oppressed, but also, and you have an acting background as well.
Yeah. So I think activism it's part of your duties as a Muslim, right?
Right.
Like, and then, so I actually, I studied theater in college.
Okay.
I double majored in theater and linguistics.
Cool. So we met we crossed paths at least online about 6 weeks ago. Why don't you tell the listeners about how this happened? And then I would say it didn't start off like super friendly.
No, it didn't start off friendly. So what happened? So you have a podcast.
Right.
Called?
The Mad Mamluks.
Mad Mamluks.
Yeah.
Right. And there was a little tidbit of a clip that a friend of mine put up on Facebook, and on that clip it showed you, I think, making a very strong generalization on race, something that in my opinion sounds
Right.
incredibly like reductive.
Right.
However, and that's why I responded the way I did.
Sure.
But then we took a conversation offline and we realized like, hey, you
Yeah.
know, like it's important to understand where the conversation is coming from, where the
Right.
conversation was trying to go, the
Yeah.
points you were trying to make. And as I was telling you earlier before we went live, in today's age, because of technology and because of how fast information travels,
Mm-hmm.
what you say, what you write, what you say on social media, on video, wherever it may be, travels very quickly, but the context doesn't come along with it.
Right, right, exactly. So if I were to explain like what happened, like, so yeah, there was about, I want to say that happened around August or about August of last year, I want to say, right? Um, I had there was a podcast that we did a series of podcasts regarding like race and stuff. It wasn't intended. So the way it started was like we brought on a local sheikh from Chicago who was doing some like there was some relief work going on in like the Bahamas that he was involved with, right? And so we kind of just went into we went into that, and then all of a sudden it kind of like talked about the issue of like white privilege and white supremacy and what it means white as a racial construct versus like being European, etc. So it went into that, right? And the sheikh has had a strong position about like that white privilege is certainly an issue, and that whiteness, that you know, it's basically it's something that European, that you know there is it's inherent nature to it. Like I have to go back and listen to the show, but his whole point was that like there is a privilege associated with whiteness, and a lot of listeners, like Muslims, would react and they would say, well, Islam is a colorblind religion. How could he say that? He's a sheikh. You know, this is critical race theory. This isn't part of Islam. You know, this is like, you're bringing in like a deviant ideology, et cetera, right? So I remember on that show, I was making sure, like, at least his points, because one of my goals as a host is always to make sure that the guest has an opportunity to get his point across, right?
Yeah.
Because the way I see it, I look at myself, that's my job. I'm not a subject matter expert on like these issues most of the time, right? So I might have I might have read something, I'll ask a question as a layman would, but I'm not gonna go out and like try to how I would say you know, by the way, on a Mac, where is the freaking mic? I think I'm looking, I should be looking somewhere else. I think maybe I'll switch the screen this way. That's better. Okay.
I hear you. I hear you.
You hear, yeah, but it's awkward when I'm like staring sideways. All right, perfect. I got it now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, but so that's kind of what happened. I remember I was getting messages from my friends like, "Hey, you got to push back." I'm like, "What's the pushback?" Like, listen, his point is, I want to make sure he gets his point across, right? That's the goal, right?
Yeah,
If we want to present a counter opinion, then we can do another show with that. There's probably someone else who disagrees with that. They can come on and air their issues, right? But long story short is that show went like, you know, it took off. People were like, you know, the sheikh made some great points, and you guys, but some people were like, you didn't push back enough. So a lot of times what we do is on that show is that we will we'll have a show, but then we might have a follow-up show as just us hosts, right?
Okay.
And then we will discuss kind of the feedback that we got. It's called, you know, it's our round. A lot of people enjoy that, right? And we have different perspectives. So like one of so I was I was kind of being satirical in the beginning of the show because I was just like I was trying to be, it was almost, I don't know, a satire or like just be like saying stuff in jest, like, oh, it's the fault of the colonized people that they were colonized, right?
Okay. So it was a cheeky joke.
It was in the sense that like they're trying to poke out something. Like I was just trying to like, because you know how you say something that's blatantly off as like in jest to kind of like make a point, how silly it might sound. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
And that was your approach.
That's what I said. Because if you go back and see the rest of the, even if you were to like go back and watch a couple minutes before that clip, you could kind of get a vibe where I was coming from.
Yeah. Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You didn't have, because I did go back. I wanted to make sure that like I wasn't like out of pocket, right?
Yeah.
So I went back and I checked it out, And what I said was like, all right. So then I got upset because I was like, this clip, we didn't make this clip, right? Like Mad Mamluks didn't make the clip. We make like our shows are like hour and a half, 2 hours long, sometimes 3 hours long, sometimes, right? Long form content where we had these conversations. So someone took a clip. I don't know who made the clip, right?
Yeah.
But like, it made me really uneasy that someone would make the clip. It's because it tells me like, what's their intention? They must have like listened to more of the content to find that clip.
I mean that's something that you would, I think that's something you would have to ask the person that posted the clip. But
yeah,
you know, with that being said,
right.
I don't think it would be fair for you to think that it comes from a place of maliciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well,
I know that makes you uneasy.
Right.
But you know, but we have to understand that you know, our voice, you know, like one of the first ayah to come to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ
Right.
was Iqra.
Right.
Right, was read. And when you read, what are you using?
Your voice.
Your voice. Your voice is incredibly powerful.
Sure.
So I feel we should never take like what we say for granted, or we should really be very explicit when we wanna use our voice. And now when we're speaking about issues around race, issues around Islam, we should definitely like, almost like when we talk about the prophets, right? If you want to say the story of Moses alayhi salam, and you just want to talk about the absurdity of Pharaoh, would you ever use any type of satirical language to have people understand the plight of Moses, of Musa alayhi salam? No, you wouldn't.
You wouldn't, right?
No, you wouldn't, because it's like you want to give it, there's that honor in Islam, right? So now we understand we're not in a Muslim country, right? Now we understand we're not talking about topics that are exclusive to Islam, right? But we're still talking about topics that impact people indirectly or directly the same way that Islam might, right? So we should use that language carefully. We should use our voice carefully in that manner when talking about race, when talking about you know, identity of people, because this is what will actually allow people's ears to perk up, right? If it sounds engaging, persuasive, attractive to them.
Right. So would you say that like when I was talking about that because the issue of race is for some people, right, as critical or as sensitive as religion.
Yes.
Right. And therefore you wouldn't like, and I, you know, that's a unique perspective I haven't thought about, because obviously you are right. We would never, as Muslims, use satirical language, even when talking about a prophet.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the Muslim would first react, well, the prophets are bigger than race.
Oh yeah,
and
of
that's
course.
fine from a Muslim point of view.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like for some people, their identity is that because of what it carries. Is that what you're trying to make the point?
Yeah.
No.
And now being in the Americas, being Muslims in the Americas, we are all technically colonized people. And there's another layer to it. We are mini settlers.
Right.
Like and that's the whole idea of and that's the whole like business model of imperialism and colonialism, right?
Right.
Go to a different country, you know, destroy their resources, destroy their land, create war, create people from that country to come to our country, and we can use them as mini settlers to continue colonizing. You know, we're part of a perpetual cyclical cycle of colonialization. So now when you say, oh, it's the colonized fault, that they're colonized,
right?
People are now looking at it because, you know, Muslims in America are different from Muslims overseas, and they're different from a global Muslim population.
Right.
And like because there's different layers. We have different layers that other Muslims haven't experienced or haven't developed because they're not living in America.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you that statement could also be an attempt at someone could also take it as, hey, so how does this impact me as a Muslim? Like, is this am I part of this bigger problem?
Right.
How do I, so it's so people look at it from multiple layers. They look at it from a racial view, a religious view, identity. They look at it from, their whole makeup, right? The way they
Yeah.
think, their ideological outlook. So of course, like these topics, and not to sound like a not to make it like, not to say that we shouldn't be able to make these jokes, because that's if that's your way of expressing yourself, that's a very beautiful and unique way, and that shouldn't be taken away, right?
Right.
So, but also we should be a little bit more careful on how we exercise our form of expression when we want to, especially when we're speaking to an audience or we're trying to engage people, or we're trying to plant a seed, which is what you were trying to do,
right?
Like,
so I think that there's a couple points I want to make. I certainly can understand the whole point of view of that, even like something that's satire or a joke or said in jest can be come across the wrong way, right? So that makes sense to me. What also makes sense to me is the fact that that we should be concerned about people's feel. Like, there's this whole thing now, facts over feelings. We don't care about your feelings.
yeah,
Like, honestly, we do. Muslims, I think if you were to, like, we're talking about respect, like offline, and how this is something that when we are people who study, and this popped up the other day in one of your threads, I think did delete, remember, where there's this very real idea that, listen, if you're going to study like Islam, you're going to study with a teacher.
Yeah.
And part of that study requires that you're going to learn etiquette and manners, right?
Yeah,
and part of that means that you're going to care about what people feel. You're not going to, you are not going to just brush off the fact that someone's feelings were hurt. Correct?
Yeah.
So we agree on all that stuff. And so I think that's what I'm, and so that is something where I would say, okay, so it was never my intent to like hurt anyone's feelings, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
As far as the issue of the clip, I still, so I'm not gonna say, I'm not gonna accuse anybody. I don't know who made the clip, right? Mm-hmm. Your friend who posted it. If we want to have, if we want to go, have a good opinion, we would say that it was forwarded to her, and like a normal person who got that clip forwarded to them would have been upset by the clip. You're generally not going to go back and like think about, is there a greater picture here? You're going to see this clip and you'll be like, what the hell? Right? And then you're going to react, right? That's a natural reaction. But I think it still raises the question. I think I still have a reason to be upset. And it does make me like, I have to question. I got to be skeptical about like whoever did make the clip. What was the intent behind it?
No, of course.
You know what I'm saying?
I think that's a very valid emotion to have.
Right.
I think that's a very like valid train of thought.
Yeah.
Right. And definitely I think like if you wanted to reach out to the person that made the clip and say, hey, how did this, like, why did this happen? How did this happen?
Right.
What's your intent behind producing this clip?
Right.
You would probably be like validated in everything that you're saying.
Right.
To some extent.
Exactly. So that's kind of the whole thing. But as far as me one of the things that as a host, I've been hosting podcasts now for a little 4 years, right? One thing about my personality, and we always ask that our personalities improved or perfected in a way, so to speak, right? But one thing about if you're around me is like, I'm the kind of guy that says stuff that, like, when you're around me, people know, like, I say stuff like, yeah, I'm just messing around in a way too. And it's like, it is also the issue of having no filter. I'm not saying that's an excuse. I'm not trying to make an excuse, but I'm saying that, like, sometimes that, like, one of the things that I have that I believe makes me a good host that I receive feedback from is that there's no question that's off limits,
Okay.
right? Because I'm like, if I'm thinking it, I'm gonna ask it, and if I'm thinking it, somebody else is probably thinking it too, but they're too scared to ask.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And a lot of guests have told me, "Hey, I'm glad you asked me that," or very upfront about it, because people like, I know they want to ask, but they feel it's gonna step on my toes. But the reality is, I'm happy to talk about it. So the question is, so obviously, and when we were talking, I don't know. So anyways, we started chatting offline, because I know you were on the thread. It was your friend's thread, right? We were tagged in it by some other people who have been on our show, and they were vouching for us. And then, there's like, and so we were talking, and so you and I just started DMing offline, and we started talking,
Mhm.
and I think that's what and I think we were able to like kind of hash this out more or less, right? So we're like, all right, so now I see your point of view. I can understand why would they be upset, and I'm certainly I would apologize to anybody that was offended, that her feelings were hurt, because that's not what I want to do. And it's and some people would be like, well, you only are apologizing for hurting the feelings, right?
Optics.
It's optics. But here's the thing, like, again, like, if you, in the entire conversation of that podcast, my point of view is very clear. It's very clear that little clip is a jest. It's a jab. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you.
So
I hear you 110%. So I do also understand you not wanting to apologize, because you're saying, hey, that's not my point. These aren't my feelings.
yeah,
This isn't what I think about race. This isn't what I think about, colonized people, which I'm a part of.
right, exactly, right.
So yeah, so I completely hear you.
Yeah, it's sometimes like I don't know what the solution is, though, right? Because there's one solution, that I can stop podcasting, or I could just change my approach as a host. But then I think that diminishes what I do, which essentially means like.
But what's the problem?
So one of the
Problem,
things,
like, of like clips being made, or things getting taken out of context. I think that's a great problem to have, first of all.
Mhm.
And I think that problem is only here, and it's not because there's podcasts.
Yeah.
So no, you shouldn't stop podcasting.
Right.
Before podcasts, there were radio shows.
Yeah.
People used to call into the radio shows, and the radio shows were taken, uploaded, and archived onto the website.
Mhm.
Right? So things could still have taken out of context. The only reason why things get taken out of context faster today is because of social media, and how quickly and how readily we have information to us.
Right.
So I don't, to be quite honest with you, I think you should keep doing what you're doing, and I don't think this is a problem. I think this is something good. The more times you have to explain your position, I think the more times people will understand that, hey, I'm taking this out of context. This is, and then and through that work that you do, you kind of establish yourself a reputation, a personality,
right?
And people understand you a lot more.
Yeah, and so I think that's why, like, and that's what when I feel like someone's really misunderstanding me, I will try to, like, either DM them. It's happened.
Yeah, reach out, which what you did with me,
right?
Which is a very admirable thing to do, and that's like, and that shows in your, in the way you are about the work that you do. You really stand by it, and you don't mind, double, going back and putting 5 on it, as they say. Like, nah, I'm gonna double down on this.
Right, but at the same time, I can certainly understand, like, I'm like that. I would be in the wrong in many cases, right? Certainly, I've said several things on the podcast that I would have to say that would probably shouldn't have said. But again, it's like the whole thing is. But the nice thing about having a podcast platform, it's your own platform. You can always go back and then clarify or apologize, or like, oh, I'm sorry, that shouldn't have been said. It's like having a relationship with a friend, right? You've had friends for several years. There's times I've pissed off my friends, right? Yeah. But you go back, you apologize, you make amends. It goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, I want to hear a little bit about you. Like, you're from the Bay, Palestinian descent, right?
Yeah. I'm Palestinian. My family's from Gaza.
Okay.
Yeah, living out here in the Bay right now. Right now, I live in Oakland, but I was born in San Francisco.
Okay, and like just without giving your age away, like what's your range or so? We'll
I'm a
get.
'90s baby. I was born in '91.
Ah, nice. So you missed all the 49ers Super Bowls. No wonder you don't care.
Uh,
You missed most of them.
no,
You
no, I
missed.
do care. Let me tell you. Let me tell you a story. I was at the NFC Championship where Kyle Williams muffed the punt,
Oh
and we
yeah.
ended up losing the game.
Oh
Yeah, I
no.
was there. I look, check this out. My ticket was $100. I
Really?
paid. I paid the ticket guy.
Yeah.
I had a connection. I paid him $100, and he scanned me in with a piece of cardboard into the game.
Nice.
I didn't have a seat the entire game, but I stood like maybe like on the second tier, so
Yeah.
I saw everything very clearly. It was
Man,
very, it was my first football game.
that's a great game to go to.
Yeah, my
I
first
mean,
live football game. My
there's
NFL game. NFL game.
I've never been to an NFL game. I've been to college games.
College games are cracking. So I played high school football.
Yeah.
So I went. I have an amazing story.
Sure.
You're not gonna believe it. This is the first time that anyone has heard it besides my friends that were there with me.
Okay.
Um,
What position did you play?
so I played linebacker.
Yeah.
I played linebacker and running back. But when I first started community college,
Yep.
I was still really into the sport because I had just played football for practically 3 years throughout high school. Right. So me and my friends that we played some ball together, we decided to go to all the bowl games that would come in that would come in our town. And one of the first bowl games that we went to was the Emerald Cup that was held at AT&T Stadium. And one thing that we wanted to do was to go to the hotel room where the players are at and say hi to them and just say what's up, right? So this was, I think it was USC versus Boston College, I think, or USC against Miami. I'm not too sure. I forget, but I know it was USC, and I know Taylor Mays was the starting safety. We go into the hotel room and we find where the Trojans are at, and they're in that and they're in that hotel, and they happen to be in the game room. So we go into the game room, and the whole place is completely trashed.
Wow.
The pool table was flipped upside down. The pinball, they had I guess they used that room to get pumped up.
Yeah.
And they destroyed that entire room. That room was destroyed. We were able to get video on one of my cell phones. Had a little flip phone back in the day.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't have that phone anymore. But that was like one of my most rawest and incredible bowl game experiences.
Wow, that's crazy. So like, what did you so you started going to you went to community college, but I want to understand how you developed your perspectives on issues like race. Like you were talking about. Okay. So one of the things that popped up in the one of the things that popped up on that show a year ago was that from the first episode where we had the Sheikh on, he was telling us that we need to be we need to read up a little bit. Read. He gave us some papers. I remember I read a paper that week about white as a racial construct, what that actually means, because he was differentiating. There's being white versus European, are two different things, right? Because white is a very it's a very abstract. It's kind of like a broad kind of brush.
Think of white as well. If you want to think about white as the inception of this country, right?
Right.
You want to think about why they came here, what their goals were, what they were trying to do. So if you represent that power structure of colonialism, if you represent that that kind of ideology, and that ideology can trickle into anything, right? Mm-hmm. We see colonialism come up in housing.
Right.
That becomes gentrification.
Right.
You see it happen in the workplace, and then that's called the glass ceiling, right? So and those are all remnants of colonialism that have been put out through other parts of society.
Okay. Now when you see is that something that you learn just by experience, or is that something that like you have to like? Because I remember when we first started talking offline, was that you were talking about like these people have done research on this. These are this kind of work being done in the field. Like how does one go about like getting like an understanding of this? If they're like you're let's take your average like suburban Desi like brown or Arab dude, right?
Yeah.
You know, parents are well off, they're engineers or doctors, they're living in the suburbs or in some bubble,
Yeah.
and then they come across and then they have no idea what goes on. Like for example, in Chicago, right? I'm sure there are a lot of like kids, like Muslim kids whose parents are owning like liquor stores in the hood and profiteering off that.
Yeah.
Right? As an example.
Yeah.
And the kid may not think twice about it. And at the same time, he probably doesn't know. He probably doesn't know what the issue is. Baba's probably got a grocery store in the hood. That's all he knows. And then maybe later he realizes what it is, but he's still like, you know, has to understand it. Like, how does someone go about to get this kind of understanding? Is there like a process?
No. That's a very good question, because so I can tell you my experience.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear. Because at the end of the day, this whole show is about understanding, like, how did people develop their worldviews? Like, there's a certain way you think. There's a certain way that caused you to, first of all, react the way that you did to that clip, right?
Sure.
And then and there's a reason probably that got me to like even say the clip. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm really trying to like unpack, how did we become the people we are?
Yeah,
From a mindset point of view, like
yeah,
what happened to you? So like,
I don't
tell me your story.
I don't mind sharing my perspective at all.
Sure.
So, like, as you know, and probably the people watching by now, I'm Muslim.
Right.
And I'm Muslim before I'm Palestinian. I'm Muslim before any other label anyone tries to place upon me, or I place upon myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's literally in my name, AbdulRahim.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the servant of the most merciful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Muslim, and I'm just a servant to God, first and foremost. So my relationship to my worldview came to understanding my relationship to being on this planet to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because in order to understand, in order to have a perception or an outlook about the place that you are in, you have to understand why you're there to begin with, right? Or else you're just going to keep asking yourself, why am I here? And then nothing will ever make sense to you, right? It's almost if you just woke up, like, have you ever seen the movie Saw?
No, I have not.
You've never seen the movie Saw. So these people wake up and they got kidnapped.
I've never heard of it.
What?
No.
What?
I'm like the worst movie guy, to be honest.
Oh my God. So the horror movie, the guy's called...
That's probably why I don't like horror movies.
Oh man, he kidnaps these people, and these people did very like quote unquote evil things or immoral things. And then they wake up in the middle of like a dungeon and they're like handcuffed.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, why am I handcuffed? Right? But you know, deep down, if they like understand what took them there, they end up realizing, and that's what happens in the movie, right? But apply that to yourself. If you were just to wake up randomly one day in a dungeon, you would, the only thing you would ask yourself is why. You wouldn't try to make a relationship with the wall. You wouldn't try to make a relationship with anything around you. You would just ask yourself why, and you would like try to survive. So I had to understand why I'm here. So I had to understand my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So now alhamdulillah, like,
I mean, how old were you when you had this epiphany?
This is a lifelong journey, my friend.
No, but like, do you think like, so you, as a kid growing up, did you always like, so I'll be like honest with you.
Oh, no. Yeah. I understand what you're saying. Like, you might be born Muslim, but when did you become Muslim? Is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like, when did you actually realize?
Okay, I would say my adolescence. Adolescence.
Okay, like middle school, high school age.
Yeah, I would say when I was like 12 to 13.
Okay.
And then I really started really understanding my relationship and wanting to study and wanting to do a lot more in the terms of like Islam around that age. I think when you're old enough like to make a subconscious decision about something. When and I think that's when you have to establish some type of emotional maturity in
Yeah.
order to understand your relationship with your Lord and why you're on this planet. Before that, you're just a kid. I just want to wake up and watch cartoon. Yeah, I fast during Ramadan. Yes, I pray. Right? Yeah, my dad taught me how to make wudu, but they all taught me how to pray and fast. But how do I know like how that impacts me? And that's why your parents, even in Islam, are responsible for you up until the age of puberty.
Right.
And once you reach puberty, all the sins and deeds that you make will be on your shoulders. Before then, you're not held accountable because you haven't developed.
Do you think your parents like created an environment that like facilitated you to like realize that at such a, because most people at 12 and 13, they're still not thinking about that, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, so I'm also lucky, like, alhamdulillah, like my parents, I consider myself, for the lack of a better word, like an immigrant, right? Even though I was born in this country, like the household I was in was very different from the world that I was placed in. I grew up in an incredibly Muslim household. We had dars, when there was no local masajid around the area. My dad sat us around in a circle, me and my siblings, and we learned about, the prophets. We learned about the Sahaba. We learned about, we studied the seerah of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. So I understood that this was something that was part of my existence, part of my being,
Right.
And these stories were very intriguing, of course. So as I grow and as I start to develop my own subconscious, and as I start to develop my own worldview, of course I'm gonna take into consideration everything that like my home, literally our home, like we were in the nucleus of Islam. So of course that's gonna be like my first, my second, my third step.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and did you find this common amongst the friends you grew up with who were Muslims? That they had similar experiences, or were they kind of doing their own thing?
I would say it's a mixed bag.
Okay.
It's a mixed bag.
Would you say that there are maybe scenarios where the parents maybe did the work, like they set their home environment up the right way, but the kids still didn't like stick to that? Or do you feel like when parents set up the right environment, that the kids more or less were in line? I know I'm asking you to take like a memory, a hike back of thinking back about like, because when you think about like when you're growing up, when you're developing, right? My own development is, your parents are one thing, but when you're a teenager, who are your most important people? You're really your friends, your peers. What are they about, right? Is something that's very critical. Now, but what is true though is that when your kids are really young. So right now, my oldest is 6. She'll be 7 in July, and the other 2. So like they it's interesting the questions they ask me. Like my daughter asked me yesterday, is like, hey, do you have like a lot of coworkers who are like not Muslim? And I was like, pretty much all of them are not Muslim, right? I mean, and so she's just like, I remember the funniest question she asked me was like, so about a year ago, and we'll get back on track, but like she's these little nuggets. So I've always made it a point since my daughter was young, and maybe the other 2 are, I've got to like figure out how to get all of them to go with me, because it's like one kid's enough, and like when they have like 2 or 3, then it's like, all right, y'all can't come with me. But I used to always take her with me to like random events and stuff around Chicago. So I would take her to like Molids and stuff. Not sure how you feel about that, but like I like.
No, I'm down. I'm down with the Molid.
Oh, okay. So I take my daughter to my daughter likes going because I thought it was a good experience because she likes the songs, and it's music is a great way to connect, right? The heart, right? It's very it's like a pathway. So it can be used in many it can be used for positive or negative, right? So I take her to these events. Last year in Ramadan, I would always take her to iftar. We have Inner City Muslim Action Network in Chicago. Iman, they have like kids programs in Ramadan. They, well, at least when we're not quarantined. So I take her with me, right? So last year, I have a friend. He's Nigerian. He's a Nigerian Christian named John. And I met him at a church class that I took a couple years back. And so he and I stayed in touch after the class, and he would just come with me to all these iftars, right? Because he grew up in an environment in Nigeria where he has Muslim family members and he had a lot of Muslim friends, and he'd always go to iftar. He loved Ramadan because he was like, man, we're just gonna eat. Even if it's not, you know, because he's a Christian dude, but but if you roll with the Muslims, you know you're gonna get fed, right? So he ends up he's coming with me all the time. I'm picking up, so I have my daughter, then I go to John's place, I pick him up, and we go to Iman, right? And so one day my daughter asked me, she's like, hey, how come John doesn't pray when you guys pray, like at Maghrib and stuff, right? And I was like, well, John isn't Muslim. And then she's like, oh, so he's a shaitan, so he's a devil.
Wow.
And I was like, no. She's like, jump. She's like, oh, if you're not Muslim,
there's only Muslims.
You're only Muslims, and if you're not, you're at a party of Iblis.
Yeah.
Right. So I told her like, no, there's people that like believe, and then I'll explain. I drive by sometimes, and I would see there'll be a big like a church, right? And I would tell her like, hey, this is a church. These are people. And so the other day she asks me like, hey, can you tell me about Prophet Jesus or Prophet Isa, right?
Yeah.
And I just put on like, I told her a little bit, and I was like, and I let her watch some like Ikra cartoon, and those cartoons they're so bad they're funny.
Yeah.
By the way, if you've ever seen them. But anyways, it's kind of like, but the point I'm trying to get to it is like, she's got this environment. It's probably in her heart. She's been to Umrah. She's made tawaf when she was like 3, right? All that stuff. So there's but I wonder if she hasn't like processed some of the intellectual stuff yet. Like she obviously has. She's 7. She's gonna be 7, right? She hasn't like understood that there's like other options out there. Because at the end of the day, we're in America. It's a free country. Religion is something that, you know, people perceive as like, well, it's, you know, because we don't know how that's gonna turn out. So like, it's always like questions. Oh yeah, I've given her the environment, but like, I also don't like expect guaranteed results, so to speak. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. But I was trying to understand like sometimes like how your environment is like. I think there is a sharp correlation with like how your parents, because the way my parents, how I was taught Islam, and this is very common in the subcontinent, is that it's just a bunch of rules, and there's no like everything is like, if you don't do this, you're gonna go to hell, right? And so I remember, man, as a kid, like even high school, dude, I was like, my mom would be like, hey, go pray Maghrib. And I would just go off into a room and just like read a book or something for like 10 minutes. And then come out, oh yeah, I'm done. She's like, you pray? Yeah, I prayed. Right. And then one time she caught me, I think. She like kind of was suspect. You know, mom has intuition. So she like peered through the door and saw that I wasn't doing jack. I was reading a magazine or something.
Yeah.
And then she called me out on it. And it's like the world's gonna end because I'm not praying. Right. But the way, and I think that's also a disconnect. That's also interesting because now I'm a dad who grew up in America. My mom did, and my mom grew up in the old country where everybody was Muslim, and the idea of like not being Muslim is just completely
doesn't exist,
right? Yeah. So I think that's where
your mom was coming from,
and then not understanding, and like they don't, and I don't think like my parents and their friends could ever like fathom that their kids would grow up and not even like, because I'll be on social media sometimes. I'll be scrolling through Ramadan and like Facebook or Instagram, right? And there's people that I know, their parents were like very religious growing up, and they're not even fasting. Not only are they fasting, they're like, their Instagram story has a bunch of like craft beer on it in the middle of the day. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
during Ramadan.
In Ramadan. So like it's like what happened, right? So to speak. And I think that's kind of always the thing. Like, so did you ever find yourself challenged in your worldview about Islam as a teenager? Or was it something that like once you got in when you're 12 and 13, you were like, all right, there's nothing else out there?
Like once I took the pill, I was done.
Right.
I remember high school being very difficult for me.
Okay.
I would have to pray during like wrestling practice.
Mm-hmm.
people were confused on why I would always like be like bowing to the floor.
Yeah.
I would be fasting during football season. And during summer practices, we had like double days and stuff like that.
Right.
And the reason why it was difficult for me is because I was challenged by my peers who were non-Muslim. And I don't think they challenged my Muslimness as much as they challenged my differences. I think
Or commitment to the team?
No. I think different. I think foreign. I was just foreign to them.
Oh, okay.
Like, here's this guy. His name's AbdulRahim. He's like, I remember.
Before you go, what kind of demographic can you break down? What's the demographic of your high school?
Yeah, I would say mostly like black and brown people.
Okay.
Yeah, there was
like black and like Hispanic.
High school. Yeah. I went to South City High School.
Okay.
South City is predominantly like Latino,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some Asian, there's some black people, and there's some white people, but white working class. I would say, I wouldn't say they're really white affluent. I would say they're more of a white working class. It's a very working class demographic.
Mm-hmm. I got you. Okay. So when you were dealt with that, because I would assume that when you first talk about like fasting during football practice and things like that they would be like, well, you're not going to be able to give it your all.
No,
right?
No, not at all. They first they so you know that was never like my commitment was never in question because, excuse me, I think it was never in question because I was doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're like, oh, you're gonna tell this guy who hasn't drank water all day that he's gonna quit?
Yeah.
Like, nah, like he's the wrong person to talk to. Maybe talk to the person who keeps drinking water.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
But I don't think it comes from them not like I don't think the challenge came because I was Muslim. The challenge came because I was different. Especially because I was different in their culture. Like, sex in high school is something that is like very like open and something that's promoted even in sex education classes, you know, and then they give you condoms in the health office and all that stuff, right?
That's how it is these days, man. Dang.
Yeah.
I graduated high school 21 years ago.
No, so I graduated in 09. So this was like circa like 07.
Yeah.
07, right? This happened in 07.
Yeah.
And then my teammate and my friend at the time, during lunch in a very public area, ran up to me and said, "AbdulRahim, I learned in class today that Muslims are virgins. That means you're a virgin?" And then I'm like, so that's when I like, so like that just to tell you, like, the challenges came not because I was Muslim. It came because I was like different.
Yeah.
You know, like they just didn't know. They're like,
right.
But like, lo and behold, like, hey, dude, like your book says the same thing about you, and it says like you're like all three Abrahamic religions say the same thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But he, at that age, he doesn't have the intellect to understand that there's people who are who ascribe to a certain religion but don't follow the entire subset of that religion, et cetera, right? So that's an expected answer to come from someone in high school, right?
Right.
But the way you respond to it has to come. You have to have a foundation in Islam. Because imagine being in high school, you'll get torn apart because you're so different, and you're growing up in America, and there's not many Muslims at your high school.
So that was your response to him, though? You did call him out on that. You did mention that point that.
Oh, not at all. I didn't mention that at all. I was like, oh, I'm glad that you learned that. What else did you learn?
Okay.
I just tried to it was like, this is not it's a funny joke. It's cool. But at the same time, like, let me find out what else you learned. Let me share something with you, you know?
You know, I think it's always funny. Like, I remember first time. So I found it like, I'm thinking back to my like middle school and high school days.
Yeah.
And it depends on the like where you went to school. So like, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. So I went to Columbus Public Schools, like in the city schools, whatever that means. You know, you can get a vibe. The city within the
Yeah, the inner
Columbus,
city.
yeah,
Yeah,
from
yeah.
grade 1 through beginning grade 10, and then grade 10 through 12 I was in the suburbs, right?
Okay.
So like, man, the stuff I heard like when I was in the city was like in 6th grade, I was what like the dude's name, Will Harper, man. This dude, this kid I went to 6th grade with, and I was the youngest kid in my school too, in my class, because I was like, my parents did the whole thing where they like try to like, because you know they don't track birthdays. I think they somehow like did something with my birthday to like get me into the next year when I was in kindergarten, right? It's like some daisy hack. So, because they always want their kids to be like, you know, they don't want them wasting time in school, right?
Yeah.
So, they end up. So I remember, so I'm the youngest. I'm 6th grade. I probably haven't hit puberty yet either, to be honest. Like I haven't full on hit it. And there's like a kid in my class, Will Harper. I remember we're at lunch, right? And he was like telling me, "Hey man, you ever had sex with a girl, man?" And I was like, "No, my religion doesn't like allow that." And he was like, "Oh man, that sucks, man. My religion allows it." And I'm like, "Oh," I was like, "What religion are you?" I was like, "Oh, I'm Christian." I was like, "Okay." And I didn't know. I like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Well, you know how you think about it, right? And then later, I remember like, I was gonna like, I'm gonna drop an F-bomb real quick because I have to like this is not a Muslim show, by the way, so I can say it. I'm in 8th grade, and there's this dude I knew named Roger Ray, you know, big burly white kid in my 8th grade's class. And he was like, "Hey man, you got a girlfriend?" I'm like, "Nah, man, we're not allowed to date in my religion." He's like, "Oh, really? Okay, that's cool. Are you still allowed to fuck one though?" And then I was like, "No," like, you know, but I was just like, but it was interesting in the concept of, because it was an honest question.
Yeah.
It wasn't like like he wasn't trying to be funny or a joke. Like I honestly felt like he was asking me an honest question. Yeah, he was being inquisitive because he was like, "Oh, like what?" You know, and I'm like, "Well, actually," and then you realize and I've always like, and my parents never split. Like it was never. I remember instances as I was being raised. I don't know how your parents did it with you. My younger brother was born on the day that Magic Johnson announced his retirement from the NBA for the HIV virus.
Okay.
So I found out this. So that's when HIV and AIDS were like became a big topic, right? After Magic Johnson, because they were like, if Magic can get it, anybody can get it. Yeah. So I asked my mom. I was like, "Hey mom, can I get AIDS?" I was like 11. I was like 10, and she was like, "No, you're not gonna get AIDS or HIV because." I'm like, "Why not?" It's like, because we don't get that. We're not like Americans. And I didn't like understand what she meant by it. I was like, "Oh, okay." I think what she was trying to tell me as a 10-year-old was just like, "Yeah, we're not fornicating. We're not fornicating heathens. So therefore, we're not gonna get it." But like, but that's the approach. It is very like, it's this kind of approach. Or my dad, like you're you know, every dad's got to have his kid talk to their son when they're like in middle school. And my dad would ask me questions like, hey, like in high school, he'd ask me like, "Hey, do you like any girls?" And I would be like, in my head, I'd be like, "Yeah," but I'd be like, no, I don't like girls, Dad. I don't like girls at all. It's like, good. These girls, man, if they come onto you, you need to like shove them off, right?
Oh wow.
You know what I'm saying? So, and then when I went away to college, and my dad was just like, "Hey, listen, when you go there, you need to make sure you get in with the MSA and all that stuff, and also no sex." And that was it. Straight up. I'm like, "All right." You know, I mean, it wasn't like explained, like I don't, and it's probably went to the whole culture.
Explain why.
Yeah, and so when people ask you about it, and then you're like, "Well, it's a religion, it's a rule," and then they ask you like, "Well, how do you know who you're gonna marry?" And then they're like, "Oh, that's a good question. I don't know."
Yeah.
Right, and then you're like, "Oh, maybe it does make sense to date somebody because you want to get to know them." I definitely don't want to do what my parents did and like do the arranged thing where they met each other on their wedding day. I don't think I want to do that. And now you're being conditioned, and obviously you're in high school, your hormones are like freaking raging, right? And especially if you have any chick that gives you attention in high school, you're gonna like want to get involved in some way, and you're trying to, and to be honest, I would say this, the fear of my father at that age was something that kept me in check, right?
Oh,
I
interesting.
never veered away from it. I was never like,
It came out of fear, but not out of understanding.
correct.
Okay.
I realized much later as I grew up that my father's fear was just an image. He actually couldn't enforce any rules.
Yeah. So okay, can I speak to that?
Yeah, sure.
So since okay, that's very interesting. So because these concepts wasn't something that you at the time you comprehended, I feel like concepts like those make concepts that fall in the same realm like farther to reach as you do progress, and as you do learn, and as you do grow. Have you read the Prince by Machiavelli?
Of course, yeah, like 20
Yeah,
years ago now.
yeah, like it's better to be feared, to be a ruler who is feared, rather one who is loved. Because if they love you, they like understand you. If they fear you, like they don't know, they're just scared, so they're gonna abide because they just don't know. They haven't made their own decision, so they're just gonna like abide. And I feel like stuff like that is actually one of the biggest detractors to further like developing your understanding of like the social sciences around you, like race, gender, and then one of the biggest ones, Islam, obviously.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of like I hear like I know like like unfortunately to say this, I know a lot of ex-Muslims.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who are like Quranists,
or people,
or people who are just like
they're worse than ex-Muslims. And sometimes they're so annoying, dude.
Or like people who are like who want to leave, who are in the process of leaving Islam,
right?
And and a lot of like one of the biggest common denominators are at their adolescence. And this is a biggest common denominator. It's not exclusive to these demographics, right? But it's something that some of them do share. They learned a lot of things out of fear. And I feel like that stunts your ability to make sense of things in a very holistic, natural, and very, like natural way, like the way, like in Islam, if you read, like literally, like I think one of the most layman terms to explain the truth, the essence of the truth in Islam is, I will tell people, just go read. If you want to know the truth between, like if you want to know the absolute truth, go read it. Like God says, read. Like that ayah is so powerful to me in so many ways, because not only is God telling you to read so you can understand, but it's also like I see it as like a challenge to these disbelievers. Like read. If like you don't want to believe, then you read. If you read what's in front of you, and then those who say, I don't know the ayah for sure, so I'm not going to say it, but it's very powerful in that sense.
I got you. Yeah. No, that's an interesting point of view, and I think that does impact probably how I approached religion originally too. Like even when I became practicing, it was more of the literalist kind of mindset, very black and white, a lot of formulas, hating on people as a fundamental premise, calling people out for like them not being like hard on like. But I think, but also I think it's like that's the group I happen to be in, because I think what happens is that like your environment shapes you, right? So the kind of Muslims you're around are going to dictate kind of, if you're going to start practicing, what kind of Islam you practice, right? But your own disposition might eventually, you might mature. So what happens is that when you first become religious, you're going to like gravitate towards the closest group that is practicing that, right? And you'll absorb it. And sometimes your personality will mesh with that perfectly. And and those people will generally stay with that group forever.
Yeah.
for a very long time.
Yeah.
But if their disposition or something else is curious. So one thing about me was that like I kind of came into Islam through like the Salafi movement, right? Or the literal, like, what people would call like a more literal understanding of people who aren't Muslim. That's the kind of, it's a more black and white approach. The idea is puritanical. The essence is like we want to go back. That was the pitch. The sales pitch is like we're going to go back and practice according to the
To the Sunnah.
yeah, exactly, to the early understanding of the early generations, which every Muslim
Yeah.
would agree upon, right? But then the implementation of that like looks something completely different than someone else who might say the same thing. But but my curiosity was always like I would always like be thinking about different like other Muslims and how they practice and what I saw and like and also shortcomings I would see within the brothers that I would like affiliate with. You know what I'm saying? And that would
Yeah.
get me to think about it. But like, so I think my disposition was kind of like shaped by my dad in that sense, but then also like being like just being inquisitive, just being curious and stuff, right? I almost say like the combination of me not like messing around with chicks in like high school and college, because in college I was by myself. I could have, right?
Yeah.
But there's like circumstances that are really funny that like never aligned for me to even like go down, like even get close to it. You get what I'm saying? And then then by the time I graduate college, I get a job, I get married, and I've been married for 10 years. And it's like my wife's the only like 11 years almost now. It's like she's the only person I've ever been with, right? So it's like I attribute to like two things really, if you think about it. Number one, like my father, like that he instilled the fear in me, right, when I was a kid. And then like even though I found out later it was like a made up concoction. And then but my mom would tell me later that she used to always make make dua or pray when she was pregnant with me. And so I was like, that has to be because I'm like, there's nothing that I did that I can attribute like me going down like a right path. There's like things that just happened that like fell in my lap, and like people I just randomly met that kind of like that got me to where I'm at today. It kind of like unscathed from that sense, so to speak, right? But so now you've understood your worldview as far as religion goes. So now when does race then come into like your understanding of race? I think come to kind of I think you're saying that like would manifest off that, right?
Yeah, definitely. So ultimately, so my understanding of like race and identity is in line with from an Islamic perspective. Like I know like a Muslim won't distinguish between a black Muslim and a white Muslim.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But someone who's a product of colonialization or a product of mass media imperialism, whatever you want to call it, might make that might distinguish between a black Muslim and a white Muslim, and many practicing Muslims do. Mm-hmm. Many like very like strong Muslims do. Like we see racism is prominent in both Arab and like South Asian families, Muslim families. No, like you can't marry this person. No, you can't marry that person because of their color or because of their or because of even Arabs are racist among other Arabs. Like even in Palestine, no, you can't marry from this village or that village. And this is a very like this is a view, this is a perspective that is developed by the secularist society that we live in, and that is what you would consider white hegemony or like white culture.
So would you say that your experience is like, so you like every Muslim would agree with you on the first point of the Islam is colorblind, therefore we should all treat everybody the same, because if our religion dictates that, it's not even like because by deduction, if a black Muslim is equal to an Arab Muslim, to a Malaysian Muslim, to a Chinese Muslim, then also a black person, an individual, is equal to a white person, to a Chinese person, to that, right? That's something that, but now you have these caveats, right? Where people are product of their environments, colonialism and stuff like that. What's that H word? Hegemony?
Yeah.
Okay. I never pronounce it right. But it's like imperialism, right? You have a world power is going to impose their will on another like country that does not have the means that they do, right? Is more or less what's going down, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so I think that's where
It's dominance of like of one. It's basically when we talk about white hegemony, it's like when white culture, the settler colonialist culture, is the dominant culture over your own identity, over your own personality, etc. Oh, yeah, exactly.
When did you realize that? Like, when did you come to that realization that like this is really what's going down?
I can give you, I can, I can give you the most simple and
Sure.
like kind of a funny, like like high school understanding of it.
Yeah.
When I could never get halal food during lunch,
Mm-hmm.
like halal food didn't exist for me.
Okay.
Like, so for lunch every day, I would like have tuna sandwiches.
Mm-hmm.
It got gross after a while.
So when you say halal, by the way, you're talking about like, because most Arabs I know will eat anything except pork. So your parents were stricter on that. They would like even wouldn't let you eat chicken and beef and stuff.
I think this goes back to really understanding like Islam and like your deen.
Okay.
Like it's explicitly said in the Quran that we should eat halal.
Okay, so by the time you're in high school, you're already like on this vibe. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Right, for sure.
So
I just want to make sure what exactly your situation was.
Yeah, so me understanding that like, hey, I can never get halal food. I'm like, there has to be a reason why. Like, I'm not talking, and then I didn't blame the lunch lady. I didn't blame my teacher. I didn't blame the principal. I understood that it was SSFUSD, South San Francisco Unified School District. Okay. And then like I understand, okay, they're the reason why I don't have halal food. Let me Google SSFUSD. And then I see all these people who are white, predominantly white males. And then I go back and I say, they just don't know me. To them, I don't exist. And to them, they don't serve me. They serve the people that look like them, their children, their kids, their generation, their culture. And that's that white dominance. That's that status quo. You know what I'm saying?
And you realize this at the age of like 16. That's crazy.
But you see how it exists in the most simple ways in lunch, in school lunches. And that's what I'm trying to like have
I'm just thinking
people understand
thinking, keep
is
talking,
that
for sure.
Like race.
That's a really interesting, like it's the idea of it's just a sign, like it's like that person. It's all it's kind of like I definitely like one thing I've realized after being in corporate America, working in a corporation, right? Is that like there's this whole like how there are like rules for like white folks and then rules for everybody else.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
And like, so like the thing is the white people, the white folks will like they have these rules and stuff like of how you conduct yourself in a corporation and a company, et cetera, like so-called code of ethics. But then like I was talking to a guy who's like he's a DC guy, but he's like a senior VP at like some tech company, right?
Yeah.
And he was telling me like, yo, bro, like these rules are just there to hold us down. Like
exactly.
He's the VP, so he'll tell me like the only way I got to the top was like I figured out what the real rules were and I followed those rules.
Yeah.
Because like you're in this system and they are going to they created the system so the rules are set up in a way where they're going to stay on top, right? And if you break them, there's a way, and if you break them, you just can't go and break it. You have to be like, you gotta play it in a way. You follow what I'm saying? It's like this game.
Yeah.
In a sense. So that's really, I never thought about that. You just had to give me a flashback to like 5th grade when like you only like, so you like in school lunch, we would only have like one option.
Yeah. My mom would always like, that 30-day calendar we would get.
Yeah.
You know why it was so important for my mom? Because my mom would go cross out all the days I couldn't eat. And then that's the day she would pack me a lunch. And that calendar, I only ate lunch at school like maybe like a month, like maybe like 6 to 7 times, because I couldn't eat sloppy joes.
Yeah.
I couldn't eat, that pepperoni pizza.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom would also give me like $5 to $10 for the
Yeah.
week. She'd say, if you do get hungry,
Yeah.
like buy something that you can't eat, like some chips or some like
Right.
whatever. So
Right.
yeah, that's you not being heard. That's literally you not being. That's you not being included. That's you. That's like you not being included into that dominant white culture.
But do you think that people would say that like it's just that we're just such still a minority that it hasn't come around yet, that it's
a
not an intention?
minority? No way. No, Islam has been on the map in America since its inception. First of all, but second, Muslims in America in the modern age. If Malcolm X put Muslims on the map.
Yeah, but I'm saying from percentage point of view, people would say there's only like 1% of the country is Muslim, right?
But Muslims still exist. That's
Okay.
see, like you exist, so you should be heard because you exist, right? You should be, and if you pay your taxes, you're part of the census, right? Money because you go to that public school, so money that you get taxed on goes back to that public school. Shouldn't you be represented in every aspect in that public school?
I got you. So do you think that now that people are would you say that today that there seems to be like more options, so to speak? Like is because of the right of not veganism or vegetarianism, but white people who are about veganism or vegetarianism.
Oh yeah, of course, 100%.
It's not so if veganism was like a black movement or a Hispanic movement, or you would be like, eat this damn sausage, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
No, 100%. I 100% agree with you.
Okay. I'm trying to connect the dots here, just trying to understand like the framework.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the only reason why Desi food became popularized and Mediterranean food became popularized is because we have a lot of vegetarian, vegan options in our dishes. Because besides like what, goat, lamb, and beef and chicken, what other meats do we eat?
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Right. What other meats do we really eat? Like not much.
Right? Okay. So for sure. So now you realize this in high school. Do you start like you see this big picture? You kind of see this. Like I'll be honest. Like I probably sometimes I feel like I'm still waking up to this reality. Like I have epiphanies today that I'm like what you just told me is like an epiphany. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just like, oh, snaps, because like you just go through life. You're just like you're kind of just looking ahead, and I think that's what a lot of Muslims, even friends of mine, we would always say that like, listen, when we don't sometimes look at the macro, at the big picture. We'll just be like, all right, we have a situation, we just deal with it, right? So if we're dealing like if I come across like a racist white dude or something, I'd be like, yo, dude, like you don't even know how to wipe your ass, all right? You don't know how to do sinja, your underwear sucks. Like, get on my face, kind of move, right? Yeah. And like, but then you don't think about like the bigger picture. You're just like, that dude is, I got him out of the way, I'm moving on. I think that's how a lot of people operate. But for you to think about this, like, oh, what's the system going on? What's the system? That's really impressive for like high school, for someone in high school. Like it's something that's really intriguing, I think.
Well, because like I understood my relationship, like why I'm here, right? So I know why I'm here, because I'm here to serve Allah. So I understand that I'm just like a little, like I'm just a little dot on a bigger plane. So there's stuff that's in my control, and there's stuff that's out of my control. And because I understand those little nuances, we're able to make these, we're able to expand our thought.
Would you say that like what was I gonna say? Yeah, that was crazy. But would you say that also that the fact that you realize, because there's also great power in the sense that realizing that like that you're created by like the eternal creator, right? That idea, right? Because people like have these very generic concepts of like higher being, but then it's like very loose and like it's something they don't think about. But you seems like you have this concrete like understanding the concrete Islamic worldview, which essentially gives you do you ever think that like when you found out these systems were in place, did you ever tie it back to like what you read about in the Quran, the narratives of the prophets, as far as like how they how they were champions of oppressed people, or how they were champions, or they were there was like a greater system that was like oppressed, that was like
Yes, of
not
course.
even oppressing, like I don't know, but like also just like it had everybody in check, so to speak.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
So you're equating that, so to speak. Okay.
Yeah.
Crazy. So like, dude, so then I guess you just started like once you realized this, is this something that would you say that's essentially, that story seems to make a lot of sense as far as like how then you're then approaching the world, and then you kind of like just learn more, and then you just kind of start building about it. You start learning about like more. Okay, so school systems like this, right? What else?
Yeah, but this is where you understand the soft like the like your relationship from like a conscientious like point of view, right?
Mm-hmm.
How you should think about it, what you should do, but then to understand like how it's actually applied. I started reading books by like Frantz Fanon, right? I started reading about like Malcolm X, Angela Davis, these people, and these people provided the framework to see how it's applied in other places within this Western power dynamic.
Who's Frantz Fanon? Is like who is that? I've heard that name before, but like I actually don't know who it is. Like who is?
Okay, so Frantz Fanon, he was a Frenchman, and he was a doctor. I actually want to tell you. Give me one moment.
Or how do you spell it? I'll look it up on my phone real quick.
Yeah, it's Farantz Fanon.
Fanon.
Yeah.
Like what's his last name?
Fanon.
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 Fanon. Yeah, Frantz Fanon. Okay.
Yeah.
Died in Maryland.
Yeah. Like like I have a few of his books here. But one of the best ones that he's known for is The Wretched of the Earth, and I think Black Skin, White Masks.
Okay.
And it talks about like he talks a lot about his experience. Like there's a story, like I don't want to give away too much, but of him, because he was a very renowned doctor. And there's a way that the French treated him and the way the Algerians treated him. And through his own like experiences, he was able to deduce, I guess what people call today critical race theory.
Right.
Where he understood the actual application of race and how it's used to perpetuate an imbalance of power.
What what's interesting? I want to. If you're talking to somebody, like a lot of people, when they're like, because I'm first time I've heard of them before. I'm looking at Wikipedia. How would you, when people engage you and they're like, "Yo, but this is very common." It's like, "Oh, isn't he a Marxist? Is it Marxist like communism, or like you understand? You probably get these kind of responses before when you quote certain people. How do you respond to that? Because usually those people haven't really like." Because the way I would say you've understood this guy is that like there's certainly things you agree with, and these are tools because people like play it off like this is the train of thought that some people, I would say Muslims,
and we're talking about Muslims, right?
Let's talk about Muslims. Yeah, let's talk about Muslims.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. This is what I tell them 100% of the time.
Right.
So as a Muslim, right? Do you believe in the 10 Commandments?
Right. Yes, we do.
Who else believes in the 10 Commandments?
The Jews and the Christians.
Okay, so are you Jewish or are you Christian or are you Muslim? Which one are you?
We're Muslim.
But then you believe in the same thing they believe in.
Right.
So but you're not going to be Jewish, you're not going to be Christian.
Right.
So I can take ideologies, or I can take frameworks from Marxist ideology, from a very left point of view, a framework, and I can apply it in a way that fits within my larger identity as a Muslim. Because for me, anything that doesn't mesh with Islam, I don't take.
Right.
Right. So of course, if it clashes with Islam, I can't believe it, because Islam is my first compass.
Right.
And then I have these other branches, but they're all connected. Like, you know, like Islam is like the trunk. Then I have these branches, but they're still connected. They have to. You see what I'm saying?
I think what happens is that people have this people like I think people have been conditioned in a way where there's certain, like, for example, they've been conditioned in a way to like think of certain things in a box, and there's certain words associated with it. And so when they hear it, so when they think critical race theory, you're like, oh, they're thinking liberal, they're thinking leftists, they're talking about, they think SJW, they think, oh, now
but what is wrong
gender fluidity, they think about all these things, and they like package it all together, like, oh, this is one team. You get what I'm saying? And so that's why they don't like, and I think that's why you get the reaction you do, because they're just like, oh, snaps, this is like all in one, without understanding that, like, hey, there's tools here that I can use and apply, and the tools that are not against my dominant worldview, which is in this case, our case is Islam, we throw that out, right? Is that like I'm trying to walk you through like how people like who would be critical of critical race theory.
I know, but that's so silly, because like, tell me where the like, where does it clash? Where does critical race theory clash?
But what I'm just telling you is, like, this is what they were like. It's like what their mind, like what their mindset is.
You know,
it's
I understand that mindset, but it's so silly. Because I guess it's not developed yet.
Right.
For you to say like, oh, I'm against critical race theory because it's against Islam. I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah. Like literally critical race theory. It's like, first of all, I think this is new. Like when I was in college, there's nothing called like critical race theory class.
Right.
And I graduated college in 2015, just 5 years ago. So in 5 years, people, like, there's this whole term called critical race theory, and it's being thrown around. And like, but what I think what it means is you're looking at race from a critical point of view. You're not looking at race just from a place that's not critical. Like, and what that would be is this what you see. I see black, I see white. Back in the day, the whites didn't like the blacks because of their color.
Yeah.
That's all that it meant.
Right.
No, critical race theory means that now you're thinking about why did they not like them? What did they do in order to stop them from progressing, like redlining, you know, and how the Constitution was written, and when they said only people that own land can vote. And at the time, black people didn't own land, so black people weren't able to vote, right? So we understand like how the critical thinking part and how that applies to race. There's nothing haram about that.
Yeah,
and
so I think what happens is, I think the other thing that happens is that like people who are seen as proponent, like people who are like advocating, like who are like, you know, in the limelight, so to speak, they might have other baggage that's unrelated.
Yeah,
you understand what I'm saying? And then what happens is that like, so let's take you and I for example. Let's say you and I are hashing it. We're both Muslims. We're hashing out. I don't believe in CRT. You believe in CRT. We're hashing it out, and then this is a hypothetical situation, not real life, you know. And then what you say, and my impression is that like you kind of cancel me in a way that makes me feel like, oh, you canceled me even though I'm Muslim because of my position on this CRT. So therefore, CRT is your religion, not Islam. This you understand how it's kind of like how it's another social media problem that I think is going on, where people are, because the person who's pro CRT isn't like, I'm sure if you ask them, isn't like, oh, CRT is my religion, right? But it's the way it's being to come across is like how you and I have been on these similar threads where we're seeing how people interact with each other. I'm like, yo, bro, like, just chill. You get what I'm saying? Like, and it's like the right of them being a Muslim or a believer is thrown out the door and it goes both ways. I'm not saying I'm actually not like the
Also,
reality is it happens from
that's a
the
product
people.
of colonialism, though.
Right. Yeah.
The reason why we deal with other Muslims
Right.
same way we deal with people who are non-Muslim
Right.
is because we've learned to deal with everyone,
Mm.
and like because we live like we're a product of colonialism. So that little thing,
Right.
that experience that you're talking about,
Right.
like, hey, you're not gonna give your Muslim brother or sister a chance to like explain themselves, come to the table, let's like understand each other. You're just gonna say like, no, I'm wrong, bye.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a product of colonialism for sure.
Yeah. So I think what happens is that like our experiences are different, right? Like there's no way when I was 16 years old I would have had that epiphany. Like I'm just telling you, like I mean I'm having, you probably had more epiphanies on this than I had, and I'm like maybe like 15 years older than you. I don't know how old you are, but like
28. I'm 28.
28. Okay, so I've got 10 years on you, right? But I think what happens is that like not everybody is gonna be like from my like it's gonna be my disposition that's gonna be like, all right, let's talk. Let me understand what you're coming from. What happens is that like you just get shut down, and then you're like, all right, man, these guys are all like that. You understand what I'm saying? And then you create these groups that are like all like foaming at the mouth against each other, and they're both Muslims. For
Yeah,
example, it's crazy, dude. But it's just like, but I think that's where it's just like, there's just a whole lot to. Is there anything else about like race that you want to touch on before we move on to? Because I wanted to get your take on some other issues as well. I just want to make sure you had a chance to like make sure really that you had a chance to like really elucidate your point of view and how you arrived to your worldview on like
yeah I would say it's very it's connected to Islam.
Yeah.
Like that's essentially like I feel like I'm
okay. No, and it made a lot of sense because I can certainly see the progression of like how you kind of came about it, right? And then we talked about some of the pitfalls of like how we approach it. And it's I think a lot of just it's like the human dynamics of like, understanding how to like talk to each other too.
And to your point, that's a result of our environment. Like earlier in our conversation, we talked about how being Muslim is of course part of your household, but of course what you learn from your environment, right? And so your environment is what also like provided you the foundation or the skills or whatever it may be to communicate with other people, et cetera, et cetera.
Gotcha. I want to. So the other thing. So next thing I want to get into is you are Palestinian. We alluded to already. The Palestine-Israel conflict. How would you help someone? So like, here's a. Let's say, for example, you've heard of Krav Maga.
Krav Maga.
Yeah, that's like the Israeli like martial arts, right?
It's I wouldn't say it's sure, yeah, whatever.
I mean, so anyways, like let's say you run across like a random dude at school or work, who starts doing Krav Maga, etc. And then you associate, you're like, all right, this is good, and then he's like, oh, Israel this, Israel that. He doesn't know anything, right? You're Palestinian. How do you explain to him, a lay person who's not even Muslim, let's say they're not Muslim, the Palestinian-Israeli issue? How is that like broken down? So
do you know who Dr. Hatem Bzian is?
Of course, from Zaytuna.
Yeah. So he has a book called Palestine. It's something colonial.
Okay.
And that's essentially how I would describe it to anyone, Muslim or non-Muslim. Look at what happened to the Native Americans.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening to the Palestinians right now.
Mm-hmm.
You see how like disgusted we are with the legacy of Columbus in today's age, how we're ashamed that they taught him in our schools and they taught him that he was someone good back in the day. You know what I mean? And now we're really learning about what happened to the native population. It's literally the same thing is happening to the Palestinians. Like the same exact thing.
I got you. Okay. And then like when they hear about, because obviously the world we live in, like for the media, the establishment isn't gonna like create Palestine. They're just gonna talk about like, well, what about like this or like, you know, like what are the common counterpoints that are being brought by like someone who's like, you know, pro, whether you agree with, I just want to understand what are the
like what do pro-Israeli or Zionist people say?
like, you know,
Yeah,
you're the
they
Ben
say,
Shapiro.
no,
What does
of
he
course.
say? Yeah,
Like it's the same way. Like always, the people who are oppressed are always the ones that were vilified. Like these people forget that even during the Holocaust, there was media, negative media about Jewish fighters that were Jewish resistant fighters that were fighting against the Nazi soldiers. There was negative media about them saying that they're terrorists and stuff like that. Like this stuff exists whenever you have the imbalance of power, when the imbalance of power is against you. Right? And that's why like there's so many lenses to look at Palestine. You can look at Palestine from like a very religious lens. You could look at Palestine from a racial lens. But I think the most accurate way and the most factual way, because you don't have to ascribe to a certain religion, you don't have to ascribe to a certain race to understand this, is to look at it from a colonialism point of view. It's like I want you to bring me one person that says, yeah, what happened to the natives is great, it's fine. I completely support that. You can't bring me one. Like, I wish you.
You mean a non-racist person? Like, I can find somebody from the KKK that would say that, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
You know what I'm saying? Like, like a person that would like not be from some extreme like right-wing group. An average person, right? Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
they're gonna say no. So what I like to talk about, the way I like to talk to people about Palestine, is I tell them like, hey, like it's something colonial. It literally is. It's a group of people that have an incredible amount of power. One of the first Zionist meeting in the world was in 1901. The World Zionist Organization. It was in 1901. Like 120 years. Zionism has been like, it's been cultivated, massaged. Like this is an incredibly powerful entity. And then in 1948, the state of Israel came to inception, right? So it took them 47 years to create a state for like it. Like I think no if, ands, or but. Like any like I don't care how you want to phrase it. The fact that you have a country that's for an exclusive people is wrong, racist, and it's not right. It's not right, and it's easy to say it's not right when you have an enemy like ISIS. You know what I'm saying? But Israel is a modern day ISIS.
This kid like trying to watch something on Netflix, and I'm like, go away. Like I told you, like watch something else. She's like, Frozen 2 is done. I was like, watch it again.
Like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like
I follow you, but here's this is what I'm kind of talking about, the challenge, like I don't know how it is in the Bay Area, right? I assume like the average white person in the Bay is a lot more like has a different mindset or perspective or paradigm than a white person I might deal with in like Indiana.
No,
you don't think
I would say no. They're not as racist, but they're like, it's like implied.
Okay, so what
they're
I would
liberals.
say,
they're liberals. It's like the worst people.
It's like that white liberal that Malcolm used to talk about.
It's like, hey, AbdulRahim, do you miss Obama? Like, don't you miss Obama, AbdulRahim? He was so good to you. I'm like, it's like they're, you get what I'm saying?
I
like,
feel you, but
I'd rather be someone tell me like, hey, aren't you like Trump? Try to beat Trump in my face. Did someone come and tell me like, don't you miss Obama? Like, don't patronize me. Like, what are you talking about?
But I think what I'm trying to get, so like you talked to like a lot. There's a lot of people, like many people in America, especially people of like white descent, America, the concept of America is their worldview. That's their religion, that nationalism. Even
Yeah.
like the Christians are like, Christianity isn't their worldview. Christianity just serves the nationalistic point of view, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
the angle. It's this very like Americanized, watered down Christianity doesn't require you to do anything except be patriotic,
Yeah.
right? So they would actually, and there's I mean, obviously there's a ton of them in America. I mean, look at our president, right? I mean, who think that way. I would venture to guess that they would justify what happened to the Native Americans. Like, to be honest, I don't think it's that black and white that everyone is just going to agree to that. That first premise that like what happened to the Native, they're like, yeah, it sucks that they died, but I mean, like sometimes it has to happen because
So
that's what we got. You get what I'm saying? If we,
yeah.
for us to have lived the way we do, which how we want to live, that had to happen. Even if they acknowledge it, I think a lot of them would just like dismiss it or but I think that's a very real sentiment that occurs.
I think Imam Malik said, if you like argue with a foolish person, then
Yeah.
right, then you lost, or
Imam Shafi, I think is Imam Shafi, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to these people, like it's like, to be honest, it's not something I would even want. Like unless someone is trying to combat me directly,
Mm-hmm.
like unless like say we're running a BDS campaign at our university,
Yeah.
and these people show up, then I will engage with them. But these people, I don't seek, like I don't seek to talk to them.
Mm.
Like they could take their reductive analysis of whatever they think and follow it to the garbage can with them. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
but I get you on that, but what I'm saying, but the point is, even if they're like idiots, they're still a huge percentage of the population.
sure, yeah,
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, if we like, so one of the things I try to do much, like I eventually want to get some of these guys on this show because I want to like hash it out and we could have a dialogue, like, but it's like really like the stuff that comes out of their mouth is like really shocking. Like they'll be like this is like an average guy. This isn't like someone that you would see as like someone that's like card carrying clan. Like he's not walking. They're not walking around like a freaking white hoodie. You know what I'm saying? With a bunch of like crosses to burn in their truck and a Confederate flag, you know, on their pickup truck. There's like an average. It's like like average. Like, and I've encountered this time and time again. You know, being in the Midwest, this is a very common notion. And I get that you wouldn't like that they may have not processed anything into their brain, but like they still have to be like, if we can't convince these people, if we can't like gain traction, how are we then gonna shift it? If we just say like, they're gonna like, don't you? Because that's what a lot of the liberals have said. Like the fact that Trump won is that we dropped the ball on like understanding the worldview of these people. You get what I'm saying?
I mean, so
what I'm trying to understand, what I'm trying to like pick here is there has to like, what's a bulletproof way to argue the Palestinian-Israeli issue? Because I don't think the colonization thing is like, when you first said it, I'm like, yeah, I agree with you. But then I was like, wait a second. I know all kinds of people that are like probably justifying. I mean, hell, we still got like.
Well, there isn't. The thing is, there isn't a bulletproof way because everyone has their own perspective.
What about casualties? Casualties on the ground, like deaths. Like there's no comparison, right?
Yeah, there's no comparison. But also, well, when did people ever care about that?
But I think the average person,
like,
that's something they
War,
will. I think the average people dying today, the average person. This is how I've argued with people in the past, right? They would be like, tell about American lives, this and that, right? I'm like, okay, so why do American lives matter more than African lives, so to speak?
Mm-hmm.
And they will say no. They actually will admit it. Like you actually, but because I think the issue of life and death, when it's happening 300, 400 years ago, they could easily like, well, it's a different time and place. Who knows? When it's happening today, I think if you press the average person, because I do believe the average person has that goodness in them that they will understand the issue of life and death today. And that's how I would take it. I'm not knowledgeable on the Israel-Palestinian issue, right? I'm not really, but that's how I would say, like, listen, at the end of the day, look, if one side it's clear.
But that's not. But then that's not true, because look what some people say. Some people say, I read a comment today. I was like reading a news article on Facebook. Like I was reading a news article, and then they had Facebook comments.
Right.
Like you can comment by logging in with your Facebook. And this lady, her name was like Diane Stewart, whatever. Like she's like a boomer.
Yeah.
Right. She said, we need to bomb ISIS into the ground. And Syria, we need to lock that place down and bomb that place to the ground until there's no more ISIS people in there. So to these people to this subset of this population that you have identified, their image of Palestinians is equivalent to that image of Muslims. You get what I'm saying? Because the issue of Palestine has a lot of religious history, but it has very much shifted into a very colonial, nationalistic mindset, because there is a subset of Jews, Hasidic Jews, who have like torn up their passports, burned it. They said and they live in a very specific part of Jerusalem, and they only work with each other. And then we see that community in New York. We see the rabbis protesting with the Palestinians, right? Because so it has a lot of religious history. But in America, there's one enemy, and that's Muslims. And they see the Palestinians as Muslims, despite the fact that the majority of Palestinians, despite the fact that the majority of Arabs the majority of Muslims are South Asian and not Arabs.
Right. Yeah, so that comment comes from a point of view, like what happened here is dehumanization, right?
Yeah, and there's also Palestinian Christians that are dying.
Right.
But if you were to ask these Bible thumpers that say like, no, we need Israel and we hate these Muslims, right, they don't. Well, you don't care about your Christian brother or sister? You don't care that they tried to kill the priest?
Yeah. But that's why I said like a lot of this version of Christianity is very much like subservient to the national, like this American nationalism. It's not just a tool. It's when it's convenient, right? So to speak. So like, and I think that's that's a good point. Like I think that I have so like, because at the end of the day, in the line of work I'm in, I meet a lot of you meet some backward ass people, man. I'll tell you. Some of the stuff you hear, you get what I'm saying? And I think it's like, and I generally, my disposition has always been like, I'll talk to anybody, right? And it's just like, but I think and often I'm the first Muslim they've ever met, or I'm the first person that like has said they're Muslim to them, right? And then I think when they put a human, point, like connection there, they're less inclined to like be dismissive. But at the same time, you're going to have people who are going to like, I wouldn't have what I give them too much credit, because I do see the point like where they've dehumanized us to a point where they're like going home, and because I mean, to be honest, and I think we may do the same thing. We might do the same thing, but like most of us, for example, have encountered we're on good terms with people who are LGBTQ, right? Like we may know them from work.
What do you mean?
Good terms in the sense that like. We're friend. Like if we have a coworker who's of that orientation, we'll get along with them.
Yeah,
you get what I'm saying. We're not going to be like we're not going to be a prick, etc. But many of us, I think, when they go home, would still be like, yeah, that person needs to get hung. They might even think that. So that's really interesting,
because they haven't developed the understanding of Islam, I think.
Yeah, but I think on a point of view of like. They have, because it's kind of there's very simplistic. It's kind of like
it's a very reductive way to think, And it's ironic because the way they think about like these like LGBTQIA people, people who are not Muslim think that way about them.
Right. Yep. Exactly. That's a good point. So, like to sum up that Palestine, you would say, let's focus on. If I want to, I just want to make sure I get your point here. Let's focus on the aspect of colonization. We tie it back to the plight of the natives,
and to make it relatable. I don't say that. I don't say that to make it foolproof or bulletproof. I say that to make it relatable because we're foreign. We're Arab. We're Muslim. They don't know who we are.
And then there are people who are like there's enough rationally minded people that could be convinced of that. As far as the people who just want to be like, we can't really worry about convincing everybody right now either, right?
What do you mean?
Would you say that, like, so like the average Trump voter in like Iowa, right? Example, we should like cut our losses, not like. We shouldn't try to like create like an argument that wins over everybody. Like would you say that's, which is fine. I think that's like, it's kind of
the average Trump supporter, like you said earlier, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like he won the election.
Right.
And a lot of people love him.
Right.
And but I guess it depends on who is your audience in this case.
Right.
When I'm talking about Palestine,
the
only time I'm engaging with someone that thinks Israel has a right to exist and Palestine shouldn't exist is when I'm either like at a protest, at a debate, if I'm having a roundtable discussion, if I did a play on Palestine and there happens to be an Israeli audience member or a Zionist audience member.
Yeah.
But if I'm having a conversation about Palestine, I'm usually talking to someone who is like Muslim, but still somewhat mentally colonized, might be Palestinian, but not really have an understanding of what their faith is. Someone that might be Jewish and they might think that Palestinians want to kill them. And that's why they want to go to Israel, only because they want to feel Jewish. But rarely do I engage with Zionists or pro-Israeli people, because foundationally, if you are in line with Zionism foundationally, that means you and I are misaligned on almost everything else. Because almost all my foundation is rooted. It's literally rooted in like the freedom of people. You know, because that's a very Islamic concept.
Right.
Like I can't oppress people.
What argument do Zionists use? Like the idea that they just took people's land. Like what do they actually do? You know what they actually? Yeah, Zionists. What do they actually say?
They say, "Oh, we have a state," and I think Jews should have a place to live and feel safe because they were a persecuted people.
And then when you counter them, like, "Well, y'all were safe," and then we all got along together.
No, I don't even counter that point. Because I think that point in itself is anti-Semitic. You're saying that Jews can't live anywhere in the world except by themselves because they can't fit in anywhere. Like that's a very reductive way to think.
Cool. All right, let's lighten this up a little bit.
Yeah.
We like spent like a good. So, anyways, what do you work in tech now? You got your theater degree, but you work in tech.
So, I had finished the show. I did a show in the Bay Area, and I didn't have a job, or I didn't have an audition lined up for my next show. And then my mom was like, "Yeah, AbdulRahim, I don't think this is gonna work. Like, you need to get a job."
Okay.
So so I picked up some concepts. I learned a lot about like technology. I learned a lot about like network technology, and I took a CompTIA exam. And then I applied at a company called Cloudflare. And then I worked there for a bit, and then now I'm at a different. And then I switched, and now I work at a different tech company, which I don't want to drop, so people don't Google my name.
Yeah,
and
right.
Google where I work and say like, "Oh, this guy said this guy said that."
Yeah.
He works here, get him fired.
There's a but you said you started off in like on the sales side first?
Yeah. So I started off almost as like a what you would consider like a sales engineer.
Okay.
And I also worked in the top of funnel sales cycle
Mhm.
as what like there's the name for it is BDR, which is business development representative.
Oh, also called the SDR, right?
Oh yeah, also called the SDR. Yeah.
Okay. And so you're the guy that's all usually making the first point of like the cold calls.
Yeah. So that's what I first started doing, right?
Okay.
Um, I started I started like cold calling people. Um, I had like my first two tech jobs. Um, and then when I started at Cloudflare, that's when I started working more on the like. That's when I started getting more involved with the whole technology side.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I work at the company that I'm at now, but now I'm a TSE, so I'm a technical support engineer. So I went from the sales side
Mm-hmm.
and I shifted over to the support side, and
Yeah.
then that was mainly because, or the support engineering side,
Mm-hmm.
mainly because I wanted to learn, and I feel like with engineering there's a constant learn, especially because I don't have a technical degree. I
Yeah.
got my degree in theater and linguistics, so I'm learning all these new concepts and languages as they come up.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the culture of the sales wasn't really something that was for me.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I'm like what you would call an extroverted introvert.
Okay. Like
So
how like
like settings like this, I'm
yeah.
great.
Okay.
I'm great. Like you and I, we can chat like up until Fajr,
Right.
and like in person, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put in a whole group of people,
Right.
like I just, you know, I get anxious, I get reserved, and that culture is very broy. It's a very broy sales culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, we hit the bong when we make a hit, when we make a sale, right? And then we have happy hour on Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of that work culture just isn't in line with not only like my own identity, but just my own perspective, my own view on things,
Yeah.
right? Like on Fridays, I would like to, like, you know, maybe go surfing. Like
Mm-hmm.
if there was a team outing and we all went surfing, that'd be cool. But we're all just gonna stay and drink and do happy hour. I don't really vibe with that. So it's very hard for me to like buy into my work and
Yeah.
have my work be a place where I feel like I can be my authentic self and grow and learn if I
Yeah.
can't really buy into the whole work environment.
So I'm an engineer by degree. That's a mechanical engineer. And so like I've always in my career, I've always kind of about 2010, I went like 10 years ago. I remember I was in a class, training class, and it was on. I'm in the steel industry, right? So like, there's this guy giving old Indian dude giving a presentation on steel, like the markets, and like it was a high level steel course. Like these are the grades we sell, these are customers that we sell to, etc. And but it's like high level, and I was really like asking a lot of questions. Meanwhile, the other technical guys in the class, like the PhDs, they're like asleep, like knocked out, bro, like drooling on the chair. And this guy, I remember we would sit back and we would talk after class, after, because the thing is, it was he had a long commute to his house, and he would wait for traffic to die down because he had to cut through the city. So we would chat for like an hour every day after class for like 3 days. And
Yeah.
so like he was like, hey man, you should get into like the sales and marketing group. You should like work your way into that somehow. I don't know how, but you should do that. At the time I was working as like an engineer in like utilities, like waste,
Okay.
like water treatment plants and stuff, right?
Yeah.
um and so I've kind of been moving my career in that direction. I went from like utility side to like a production facility.
Okay.
And
And now
then
you're on the sales side.
no,
Or
not
you're
yet. I'm in product quality, right? And so I
okay.
do technical service. So I used to be in equipment maintenance because I'm a mechanical engineer. So I
Yeah.
was like on the on this maintenance side of the equipment, like supporting the equipment that makes the product, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, they are doing no interaction with the customer,
Yeah.
right? So then I was like, okay, who is quality is? So I went to quality, and then I've like done I'm in my second job in quality, and it's like this is more of a product engineer job, and you're trying to move into the commercial, and now like the end goal is like to be like in sales, right? Um, but then recently I came across a guy, I was talking to a guy earlier. I was telling me like there's some executive I was telling you about, like he's talking about the whole like white man rules and stuff, how we
Yeah.
in corporations. He was telling me like, yo, bro, he's about my age, and he's like, hey man, like you are severely underpaid, like severely. It's bad. And I'm like, all right, what do you? So, but at the end of the day, that's common for manufacturing. I do know that like our industry, manufacturing, he's taking it from a point of view of a tech sales VP. But we're the same age, so obviously he's making a killing compared to what I make, right?
Yeah.
From his vantage point, I am, and I'm like, well, in manufacturing it is, but I'm like, but he was like, yo, dude, but you have like but you have a tech degree. You seem to be able to talk to people. You could be making a lot more money doing what I do for like probably the same amount of work you're putting in at, now. Right? Doesn't that make sense? I'm like, well, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Right? I mean, like, I'm not married to I hope my boss isn't watching this, but I mean, but the thing is, like, I'm not married to the steel industry in that sense, right? Because at the end of the day, what I'm doing right here with you, having these conversations, like building a podcast and a YouTube channel, is what I really love to do. And he's like, listen, you could do that, and then you could do your podcast. You probably have more time to do it, and you learn how to sell, because
Exactly.
the business development side, as you like market your podcast, and so to speak, it'll actually be a win-win. It'll help you better. And getting a tech, that, because you're an engineer, I think you'll pick up the concepts, even though it's a different industry. You'll pick up the ideas. Your brain is like wired for it, right? So anyways, I started. I took this Oracle, like I was telling you earlier at the beginning of the show. Like, hey, I put the podcast on hold for a few days to like do this Oracle cloud training. Man, it was so boring.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So
it's boring.
So like, wow. So why did you do the Oracle cloud training?
So I was doing a Mad Mamluks podcast last weekend, and one of my co-hosts is an Oracle DBA, right? So we were just talking after the show. I was like, hey man, people have told me that I should get into this like SaaS sales kind of stuff. And he's like, well, maybe you have a background. Maybe you should go like learn, like at least figure out, like look for ways, the doors to get in, like ways to bust the door down, right? And I was like, he's like, Oracle's giving out free training, I think, during COVID. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, so let me check it out. And I was like, my logic was, yeah, I'm not going to be, if I'm let's say I'm a sales guy for Oracle, I'm not going to be like, know the nitty gritty of this. But I figured if I could show that like, oh, I went and took this course and I passed this exam, would show somebody like, all right, this dude cares enough to like learn the software that he might be selling, even though there's no telling what I'm going to be selling. It's more like to show, because what happens is that like in interviews, you're having conversations, right? And it's like, what have you done to show us that you're actually interested in this? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I think okay. So this is my opinion. My opinion is a little bit different from I guess what you've been told. But this is what I'll tell you. So your experience as an engineer, is incredibly valuable because you know how something works, and you know how to take something apart, you know how to fix it. That means you understand the entire product. So that means you have the technical aptitude. It's already proven because of your tenure, because of your work ethic, because of what you've accomplished, that you have the technical aptitude to understand a product, fix a product, break a product on purpose, understand how users interact with it. Like you understand, like, this is what I would recommend for you, or this is what I would recommend for anyone that wants to get into SaaS, because this is something that I did. And then this is something that I said, okay, now that I know how to do this, now let me go like build it. All you have to prove to any SaaS company is, you understand their product, you understand how it works, you understand why people want it, and then you also understand how it could develop, like how it could change, how it could shift. Like for instance, like when Facebook was first like on the stock market for $19 a share, back in 2012 or 2015, how many people laughed? And now it's at like 200 something. And they're one of the top 100 businesses in the world. And you know what they do? They sell ads. That's all they do, is they sell ads. But now look at how their business model developed, right? So if you can kind of see like how Facebook kind of grew,
Mm-hmm.
and you can kind of apply that same type of like thinking to any other company
Yeah.
on top of being able to like break a product and fix it,
Yeah.
then you're good. Like
Okay.
for like, let's take one company for instance, like GitHub,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you look at GitHub, like GitHub is used for, it's a coding platform.
Okay.
And if you understand how the coding platform works, if you understand Git, and you could like kind of like explain it to anyone, explain it to a kindergartner.
Yeah.
I love, there's this post on Reddit. There's a subreddit said explaining it to a kindergartner. And it's basically trying to take these large concepts
Yeah.
or very complex ideas and then just like explain it to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I feel like if you could do that with any SaaS company, then you understand their product. And then because you understand their product, you know how to sell their product.
So it's essentially like, so one of the someone else told me, I have a friend of mine who used to work for Oracle, would tell me that like, one thing you should figure out is like, you probably worked with software already in your job. I'm like, yeah, I have. It's like, once you think about some of those products, you already been an end user. Maybe you go after those companies and be like, listen, I've already used this for 4 or 5 years. I already know I had the end user experience. And then like go from that angle, so to speak. But that's it. So what you would say is take it, not focus so much, because at the end of the day, like the Oracle is only one company. It's only one, like in cloud.
Yeah, I would not want to work at Oracle. Like Oracle is like really outdated. Their technology is like their technology is kind of like they're losing a lot of ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like basically like there's so many cool startups. That's the cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like what are you passionate about? For me, I was passionate about security. So I went after Cloudflare because I love security. I love network security. I love the idea of trying to break into internet ports and like having access to all this information that's traveling on the World Wide Web. I think that's so cool. I think that's very fascinating. And I think that's really, really I think that's something really like powerful to learn. Some people think like, no, actually what I think is really cool is I want to empower users to walk their dogs. So they would apply at a company like WAG, and they would want to try to do commercial sales or engineering for that company. Why? Because they feel like a personal attachment to that mission. And ultimately, I'm just telling you what worked for me.
Right.
Like I got behind a company that I could get behind their mission, and I found a place within that company that I fit in from a cultural perspective, and my voice is heard. So I'm happy. So I'm going to stay here. Right. And then you kind of like look around and you shop around until you find your perfect fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what other, like, would you say something like blockchain? If that's something you're interested in, it was like something.
Yeah.
Like,
hell yeah. Like Coinbase. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Working at Coinbase would be dope as fuck. But I think I'm too junior. I think I'm too junior.
Right.
But that would be hella cool.
Okay.
Like,
so
working at a company like Coinbase.
So like, let's say like, okay, so one thing that it's obvious from the title of the show is that let's parlay this a little bit and like, we talked off, like I'm obsessed with sneakers and like streetwear and that kind of fashion, like men's fashion, right? So like
StockX might be a good company for you.
StockX.
Yeah. Like reaching out to StockX and like even like maybe like because of the engineering background that you do have in product, maybe joining their product team first. And then like while you're working with their product team, like develop a relationship with like their director of like worldwide sales, and then say like, hey, I think I can help like us make more money on the platform. And then like, how they started introducing like trading cards.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I used to love trading cards, man.
Right. Like this is all this whole idea, like you want to be able to grow and develop that. And you want to like build, like you just want to show that. But yeah, because you love those, you love streetwear, you love sneakers, that like, if you're like that passionate about it, then yes, of course.
And so the software, the idea is, because like, I think what happens is like sometimes when we traditionally look at job, like if I'm looking at a job posting, right? Because first of all, I'm 38. I've been like working for 12 years post college, and it's like you have this like aversion to go, like some people are like, well, you need to go entry level and then work your way back up, right? in that
No,
sense.
not at all. You're gonna throw away all those years that you worked? Nah, that's no. Those are what like what that's what allows you to like go in at that like junior director executive level.
So okay, so then I have like let's say look, I'm looking at StockX. They're looking for, let's say, a solutions architect or something, like a product
Yeah.
manager or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And it requires like 3 years, 5 years of X code, some language or something, right? That I
Yeah.
have no idea about. How do you navigate that?
So two ways. You speak to how you have that technical aptitude to learn it. And then you also show them like, yeah, I may not know this specific language, but I've shown you that I can learn it based on my work history. And second, I have X, Y, and Z that you won't find in other candidates because of my unique experience. And I can also bring that to the table. So not only do I bring the technical aptitude so I can do this job,
Right.
and we both know I can do it already, but I also bring a unique set of like other programming skills or other skills in general from my work in engineering that you normally wouldn't come across of because of the way you like structured your job post without saying those exact words. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Now, all I need you to do is become a hiring manager at StockX, and we'll be set.
Yeah, that's it. No, but like seriously, like I think we like oftentimes we get very nervous. But so let me tell you, like I've worked at Pandora, I've worked at Cisco, I've worked at Meraki, I've worked at Cloudflare, and now I work at one of the $1 trillion companies in the world. And like I've even interviewed at a place like Google. Right? And I got an offer from them too, but I said no. For this different place. But literally, and I don't have a technical degree, and I don't have a business degree. I studied theater and linguistics, and I tell them that all the time. I was like, what I know, I just know how to read, and I know your product because I read your product and I understand it in and out, and I understand how to market your product. So this is why I can do this job for you, or this is why I can. This is what I bring. If you want someone who's just gonna if you want someone with a business degree, if you want someone with a technical degree, and you want them within that framework or within that box, then you can find them. There's millions of them. It's easy on LinkedIn. You just go search for people with a business degree or search for people with an engineering degree. Like, you are the outlier that wouldn't come up in their LinkedIn searches. You are the outlier that doesn't come up in their initial like headhunting searches, because they don't know to look for you. They don't know that you exist, but you are this treasure trove of value because of your perspective and because of your unique attributes.
And what's been your approach with your background to like kind of get your foot in the door? You like just direct message on LinkedIn?
No, so the Bay Area is very, very small.
Yeah.
And like alhamdulillah, like we have a lot of good Muslims in the Bay that are actually like one of my dearest friends. His name is Khalid Hussein. Incredibly brilliant man. He went to Virginia Tech. He's a Masri. He's a very, very beautiful soul. Very, very great brother. He started like 3 companies. He was an executive for a long time at Airbnb. He's a brilliant blend of both the technical aptitude and the business mindset that you need to start and run a company. Right. He sold one of his companies to Stripe. He's done very incredible things. So being among people within that space allows me and I think about Khalid.
Yeah.
And I think about people like Khalid. There's another brother named Ali who created Tonal. I don't know. I want to tell you his last name only because it wouldn't be fair if I didn't. Ali Oradi.
Okay.
Created something called Tonal, which is an in-home gym. Think of it like as the Peloton.
Okay.
But it's a weight resistance and whatnot. doing incredibly well, and before that he was working at HP, designing like supercomputers. Like these are brilliant individuals. They're smart. They're incredibly gifted, and they happen to share something with me that if it wasn't for this commonality, we probably wouldn't really like know how to talk to each other.
Right.
Right. Also, one of the former VPs of Reddit was Muslim, and they live in the Bay. You know, like there's these incredible Muslims that have been in these amazing positions of like within corporate America, and they always want to give back. They always want to extend a hand out, and not hand out, but extend their hand out.
Right.
Like and help people.
Sure.
But aside from like working within my community, literally like you have to write an amazing cover letter.
So this whole theory that cover letters are a thing of the past is not, you don't
no, like I have to explain to a recruiter why someone with a theater degree and a linguistics degree and like 3 years of like vocal workshops and of a Shakespeare class is qualified to work at a $1 billion company that's going to give him like a 6-figure salary.
Yeah. Right.
To do nothing that he learned, you know?
Right. No, that makes sense, because I think at the end of the day, there's also the notion that I spoke to some people about. They're like, at the end of the day, corporate America is very different, and I'm like, and I kind of answered some of these questions before I asked, but it's again to the benefit of, because I think especially people listening, we sometimes, especially as someone who's an engineer, even in my own career, there are like experience does matter in my career, like in a steel mill, for example, because if you like I couldn't like tomorrow become a department manager of like a blast furnace, for example, having no blast, because there's so much, like people spend years learning. There's so much complexities that, and it's not something you just you can read about it, but you have to live it, because it's like molten lava, like steel, like going through, and then there's things that go wrong, and these are old, so there's all this complex equipment, pumps and hydraulics and all this stuff that goes on. When we try to like, and you find that people get exposed if they were somehow unnecessarily fast-tracked, so to speak, right? Whereas, and I've found this maybe like the cloud stuff. It's like, all right, within a few days, I was able to like understand, like knowing nothing about what's going down, like kind of like the language behind it, so to speak. But I think the mindset tends to be, a lot of people like the experience does matter. You don't want to like do a job that you're not ready for, because then you'll fall flat on your face.
Yeah, of course. It matters. It matters if you're gonna manage a group of engineers.
Yeah.
It matters if you're managing a territory, if you're like a sales executive.
Right.
Because sales, like a lot of sales executives, what's important to them is if you're able to like penetrate a market.
Yeah.
Right. If you're able to penetrate a market, and if you're able to expand a footprint of a company. And the way you do that is with contacts within, like, you reach out to contacts from your book of business.
Yeah.
Right. You understand how to effectively sell, and you also understand how to manage these personalities, like these account executives and whatnot, that are usually very like egotistical people. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, to a degree. So there, and I apologize if I was misleading, but in no way am I saying like, hey, just jump into like a role that you're not ready for.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, if you want to present yourself as a way to present yourself to something that's so foreign, to show them that, hey, I've learned foreign topics before and I've learned them, but also I'm also going to bring to you what else I've learned that you don't have any exposure to, which will actually help you and benefit you in the long run. Right. But of course, you also come with you want to meet them where they're at.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. As far as like you said, you told me you used to resell Supreme.
Yeah, man. So like so I first got into like Supreme, like I want to say in like I want to say like 2009.
So right when you're graduating college.
No, when I'm graduating high school.
High school. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Like right like my senior year of high school. The only reason why I learned about it in 09 is because that's when I got an iPhone.
Okay.
I got an iPhone and I was able to download the Supreme NYC app.
Mm-hmm. And you actually were able. You actually hit on some stuff.
Well, see, so like for me, like Supreme is such like I look at Supreme the same way I look at Kendrick Lamar. I met Kendrick Lamar when he was like K Dot.
Okay.
And actually, I met him because J-Rock at the time was doing a show in the Bay. Okay. And I wanted to buy merch off of him after the show.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, you can also support my little homie here.
Yeah.
K Dot. And I was like, cool. And then like I saw him and I saw Kendrick Lamar perform twice before he ever released a major CD. I saw him perform in Berkeley and in Oakland.
Okay.
So I look at like his greatness that within the music industry that he's climbed to today. To me, it never came out of left field. To me, like I saw this, I was like, oh, this guy's amazing. He's gonna win a Grammy. Like he's an amazing rapper.
Right.
So when I first saw Supreme, I was like, oh, this is a cool brand. Like this brand is very like it's very vibey. It speaks to my vibe, which is kind of like a skateboarder, surfer culture.
Yeah.
Like type of vibe because like I live in the Bay, right?
Right.
So it's a very big part of my identity.
Yeah.
So and it spoke to that. So I used to get a lot of Supreme back in the day. And then as like technology started getting better, I started and Supreme started to get somewhat of a hype. I started to, be involved with bots. A friend of mine built a bot. So we were using bots for a long time. And it's funny enough.
And a bot is someone who's still listening, who's still tuning in after like 2.5 hours. A bot is like basically a way to like I got freaking bots on the YouTube channel. Like I'll post a video and there'll be some automatic guy, like some dude named Logan, like, hey, you want to be friends? To every video I post. like hide, It's like an automatic, it's like you program it, right?
Yeah.
And then it goes on the app or the website and it cops the piece that you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. So right away, so when anything would drop, automatically the bot will capture it, fill out all your information for you, and make sure you ship it out so you don't have to do it like automatically, so you don't have to do it manually, right? And that increases your chances of getting what you want.
Yeah.
And Supreme was kind of like polluted with bots to up to one point. And it's funny because when I worked at Cloudflare.
So is there an opportunity in that to like, let's say like to work for a company like a streetwear brand as like anti-bot guy?
Yeah, well, that's what Cloudflare does.
Okay, so, that's okay. Okay, cool. So that's what that. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So the reason why I even like applied at Cloudflare is because this stuff interests me.
Because I was like,
I love security.
I'm like,
this was one of the first customers I try to reach out to.
When you said security, I'm thinking like a security guard in a parking lot garage.
Oh no!
Or like anti-hack. No, I mean that's or anti-hacking kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what I thought too. I was like, but now you connected it to the whole bot thing, and I was like, yeah, Nike. These companies, they don't want. They say they don't want bots.
They don't want them because
you know
why they don't want them?
Why not?
I'll tell you why. Because it hurts their bottom dollar. They don't companies don't see a penny of a resale.
That's true, but like
so then that pisses them off. They're saying, you're telling me there's a resale market that's upwards of $1 billion, and that billion and not even $1 million of that has touched my pocket.
I see what you're saying, because if there's no bots, only the people that actually want the gear for the gear itself to rock it are gonna cop, and you have less of a resale market. When people got bots, they just got like
the resale market grew.
They got everything. Yeah.
But then one of the biggest problems, like this is from like a sales perspective. So we had a customer call with Splay, which is the parent company of Supreme.
Okay.
Right. And they're like, we hate bots. They said that. They're like, we hate bots. We don't want bots. Like we don't like bots. It makes the user experience horrible. Like people are frustrated with it. like we can't out engineer them, because engineering is always like someone can always write a better script for a bot, right? And they'll always catch on to the differences, right? So yeah, so like I guess I forgot where I was going with that.
No, we were just talking about like how you were reselling Supreme and you built bots, etc. And then
Oh yeah, but yeah, so,
to the
but that's
bots.
why I went to Cloudflare, because
Okay.
I saw that I could like reach out to these companies like Supreme and tell them like, hey, you guys have a bot problem, I have a solution, let me help you. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Interesting.
so that's what I try to seek. I try to seek like a job that will fit within my lifestyle. You know what I mean?
Right. No, so like, but like the bot, the whole. So, okay, so because I thought about different ways, right? When you have bots copying all your gear, it does increase the hype, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It increases the hype because at the end of the day, when Supreme sells out on a
But
release
Supreme
day,
doesn't care about hype. So you know what Supreme cares about? That $500 million they got from Carlyle Group. You know?
right? But don't they get that regardless? That's what I'm getting at. Because if you sell out on a Thursday, let's say you sell out your entire collection the day it drops, right?
Yeah.
Why does Supreme, like, the bottom line is you're still making the same amount of money whether you sold to humans or bots. Isn't that true? It's staying the same.
Yeah.
It seems to me like they're just annoyed that there's another market that they're not getting anything out of.
Yeah. So they went ahead and they sought an investor,
right,
to increase their manufacturing, because they're like, what we need to do is stop selling out. We just need to flood the market with Supreme, almost like Obey. You remember Obey?
Yeah.
So
but
Obey,
then eventually it gets you into irrelevancy, though. Once you become like too open,
but who cares?
Like,
because it's a cap. They don't care about being a brand or a lifestyle.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
They're just a company, and they have consumers. They're like, how do we make the most money that we can? Yeah, it's cool that there's a culture attached with it for the meantime, but they could give a shit. They don't care.
Yeah, it makes sense. So who's this guy? James Jebbia. He's the founder of
Supreme.
James
Jebbia. Yeah.
He sold it to this other some firm, basically. So he's
Carlyle
no longer
Group.
the owner. Okay,
Carlyle Group. They bought 50% of Supreme for $500 million.
So let's take a company like Kith. I don't even like Ronnie Feig, right?
Yeah, I know. I know him.
So Ronnie, he's still the guy for Kith, and he talks about like he came up through the culture. So they talk about this whole thing about culture, right? I could see him he would care about hype, I think, because he's from that cult. He's like, even though he's a businessman, at the end of the day, he started like he's a guy. He's basically like a sneakerhead that created his own company.
Yeah, so Kith just used to be a place where you could just buy shoes.
Yeah. So, but now they're same stuff. And
then he created a brand out of it.
Right. So for me, I've tried to cop some of their stuff, and it just like it's taking a loss, taking an L. Like it's not happening, right? Especially, but I think he would care more about like the hype aspect of it than Supreme, because of I think the companies that are run by people who are still like culture fiends, so to speak, that they're still like about that. That's why they got in. Like once you sell yourself like the Carlyle Group, of course, they're about making that loot.
So I think Ronnie only cares about it because he understands that he's only gonna make money off of the hype. Like right. I honestly think Kith is like one of the wackest brands.
Really? Why do you say that?
Because
you're not the first person to tell me that, but like,
I think Ronnie's a really whack dude in general.
Is that because he's Jewish or Israeli?
No, just check.
I was gonna ask, like if I ever interviewed him,
just read more, just read more about Ronnie in general, and just like I think these brands that try that, I think Fear of God is whack. Like I think it's whack to sell $800 pair of sweatpants. Like I think Jerry Lorenzo's a cool guy. I like his hair, but really like fuck you, dude. Like who's buying your sweatpants for $800? I think Kanye's West line is whack. Like really, you're just gonna sell me a piece of cloth for like $12.50?
There's so with Ronnie, there's yeah, you bring it up. So I like 'cause I've consumed a lot of his interviews.
Nothing made in America is worth the money that it asks for. If you want real quality in your clothing,
yeah,
it's all about it's all about like the Japanese clothing. Their denim, their fabric, their stitching is incredible. Anything from the eastern part of the world, even from our parts of the world, right? The clothing that we can get from Palestine, from Bangladesh, from like Pakistan, that actually utilizes the textile and the embroidery and that beauty and that cross stitching, that real handmade. That's the beautiful stuff. All this stuff is made in a factory, and they just push it off to consumers.
But like people would say that like brands like, because like Bangladesh, it's like garments industry is huge, right? Like Old Navy, everything is like, you look at Old Navy or Gap, it's all made. But I've always heard that's like substandard, because it's like it's assembly line work. I've always heard that my impression has always been that like made in the USA or made in Japan, right? No. Versus like you don't want made in China.
No, I wouldn't really agree. I think I think there's a really cool brand called Polar Skate Company.
Okay.
They have a lot of clothes that are just like the same type of style as what you would see in like a lot of this new like mesh. You know what I just don't agree? Like I'll tell you what my biggest gripe is. I don't like this whole blend of high fashion and streetwear, because these are two totally separate demographics. Streetwear is a very working class demographic, and high fashion is a very celeb culture demographic. And then if you look at it again, you have the imbalance where you have the rich and you have the powerful people with the money that are again holding dominance over the subservient culture, which is the working class, the skate culture. And they're saying your clothes are kind of cool, but they're better when they blend it with our aesthetic.
Do you think that, so they would argue that like, because I've heard Ronnie Fike talk about this, right? First of all, I want to put out there what my issues with him are. Number one, he used to work for his cousin named David Z. Right? That was the guy that got him in the door, right? He used to work for his like as a warehouse kid who's like 13, right? Yeah. David Z is like a family member. Yeah. And he always talks he speaks respectfully about it, but at the same time he makes it seem like they're not on good terms. And I'm like, oh, I haven't talked to David I'm like, yo, dude, he's not only is your family member, he's the guy that got you. There's got to be like, I'm a sentimental kind of guy, right? I'm like, it rubs me the wrong way that someone who helped me out in my career, I got my career jump started literally when I'm 13 years old. It's someone I don't have a relationship with anymore, and he's a family member. That's problematic to me, right? Obviously, I don't know the details behind it. The other thing is like, Islam has this concept of dayuth. you know what that is? Like, I think he's like a dayuth because he showcases his wife like a freaking piece of meat on his Instagram.
What does that
drives
mean?
Me nuts.
What does that mean?
A dayuth? Like have you ever heard of this? Like a dayuth?
No. You said dayuth?
Dayuth. I might have mispronounced it. It's an Arabic term. Dayuth. It's like where like imagine that like it's a guy who like enjoys his wife or significant other being stared at by like other men.
Oh, so it's like the opposite of a
of having ghira.
Yeah, it's the opposite of like a pinch wife, of a cuckold.
Right. Maybe it's the same thing. I thought the cuck was the one. Like a cuck is somebody who like enjoyed, who'd like want to see his wife.
Oh yeah. It's the same thing as like a charlatan, a cuckold, a pinch wife.
Right. So like, and I'm like, that rubs me the wrong way in a sense. And he's Jewish. Like he's pretty open about him being Jewish, right? So I'm like, bro, why do you use pigskin in all your material?
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, but my problem is that he's like, he uses pigskin in all his shoes.
Oh.
I'm like, yo, dude, like, come on. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, shouldn't that be a get? Like, I know he's probably not like an Orthodox or Hasidic Jew, but I'm like,
yeah.
Because I'm like, I've wanted to cop some of his collaboration sneakers, but you always gotta look.
So you feel like he might play up his Jewishness in the media, but not really have it be a reflecting in his product.
In a way, yeah. I'm like, how are you gonna use?
So it's hypocritical. It's hypocritical.
Yeah. right? How are you gonna use pigskin suede? Now I don't know the Jewish law, but the Jewish law I know is stricter than Sharia,
Yeah.
right? And then the Sharia, right?
Yeah.
And I'm making an assumption here. I don't know, but I'm making the assumption that that Jews aren't gonna wear clothing with pigskin.
That's
That's what I
that's a
would
good
think.
assumption.
Sorry?
I said that's a good assumption to make.
You know what I'm saying? So like that to me is like some of the issues. But I mean I like his story. He's someone I would love, but but if I had him on the podcast, I tell him like, yo, bro, what's up with like, don't you think like you're flaunting your wife in this way? Like this, isn't that like it just seems a little like because you'll see if he'll post it, and I'll be out front. People are like, why are you looking at the post? I'm looking at the post, shoot me, bro. I follow Ronnie from Instagram. Like, I mean, like I hope you didn't tune in to like find a saint, right? I'm checking the comments strict, and everyone is like commenting on her. I'm like, yo, that's like that's just like so weird. It's just like not only from the point, even if you take the religiosity out of it, this whole idea that like you're gonna like flaunt.
Well, sex is cool.
Yeah,
sex is cool, and sex is part of our consumering habits. It's sex has been monetized in very strong ways, and Ronnie sees that sex is a tool for monetization.
Yeah,
and he leverages it in his own way.
Right. It's not like, let's say for example, and I don't even post this that much. Like it was like a family picture, me and my wife and the kids were in a picture, right? But when you're posting stuff about you're posting your wife in like provocative like poses. I mean, like, come on, man. That's just like, anyways.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Some people like that's why when we all have different baselines. Like yours and I's, our baseline is probably in Islam. So our perspective on treating our partner or even someone who's not our partner is different.
Right.
If someone has a baseline rooted in somewhere else.
Right. What would you say? So back to your whole point, though, it's interesting, like the whole like how the power structure is now like doing this whole like high fashion with like streetwear.
Yeah.
Because Ronnie would argue that like, okay, he's trying to like have his audience, the people who he used to like rock with him like 10 years ago, they're growing up too. Like, so like because that is something I struggle with. Like, I think about like when I'm 45, how am I going to be dressed? Like the stuff I cop now. Because like right now I think about clothing from a point of view of like, I've gotten pickier and pickier as I've gotten older, right? I think about like how long, because I wear clothes for a long time, right? Yeah. And I still want to be able, and so the whole idea is like the high fashion is a measure, is like, so you want to like appeal to your consumer who's been with you for a long time and they can grow up with you, so to speak. That's the angle they're coming at, right? I think the problem seems to be though, like, what are your thoughts on the fact that it's bankrupting the people in the streets? Like, you gotta understand, like, people when they are going above their meat, like, do you see it?
Yeah.
Is the angle you're coming at? Because the hype is so real, and it's because being on the street, the whole thing about being fresh and all that. People are now going. They're already. I mean, to be honest, like, I think people are already going above their means. Like when you're like, I've been in sneaker lines, and I've been I have conversations with people, and I wonder, like, why are you in this line to buy these 200 pair of Jordans when you're like barely paying rent?
Yeah.
And there's this whole thing
it's a very sad reality. It's a very sad reality. How do I feel about that reality?
I mean, but I guess I think I know what you feel, but I think that's like another angle of where, and now they got payment plans. So if I'm gonna buy like an $800 pair of sweatpants on Fear of God, I can take out like a $25 a month payment plan.
Yeah.
So like,
with like Affirm, Klarna, all of these are tech companies based in the Bay. They're all what? They're all actually, holy shit, this is such a interesting segue. There's a new type of there's a new consumer facing company that it's like in finance. It's called microloans. We saw it kind of starting with SoFi. What SoFi used to do is they used to buy the loans of people in full of their of your school loans, and then they would resell it to you at a different rate.
Mm.
but the rate that they would sell it to you at is still more than what they bought it for.
Mm.
No, so at the end of the day, they're still making money, but
Right, right.
you're just paying less of it. So now we see all these other companies like Klarna, Assist, Affirm,
Mm.
Afterpay. They're taking what they're doing is they're going to these um, um, end companies and they're saying, "Hey, you guys have a lot of consumers, and it looks like you guys have a lot more consumers that are under a certain demographic that may not be able to afford all your clothes all the time. How about we help you help them,
Right.
afford these clothes, and we'll get like 1 to 3% of whatever your sales are or whatever it may be."
Mm.
So again, they're just finding more ways to exploit you. And
Right.
these little micro financing companies, they're fucking evil. Lending Club,
Yeah.
Affirm, all these
Mm.
companies,
Mm.
they're evil. Because all they're doing is they're just they're like all they're doing is they're finding ways within this whole paradigm, within this whole system of like riba and usury and
Yeah.
capitalism to further exploit people who have already been exploited. They're like, how can we make this poor man that's already living paycheck to paycheck live more paycheck to paycheck? How about make what he wants more available to him?
Yeah. This is a subject that's been on my. I remember I was at Iman, Interstate Mission Action Network for Ramadan, like several years back, right? And there was and this is not something I could come out and say, but I remember with a brother named Shamar Hemphill, sorry. He's like one of the he's one of the board members there, and he was giving a little like spiel. He was giving a little talk, and he made a reference to how people are, buying shoes on like a layaway or something like that. I think like the Shake Shoes is a boutique in Chicago.
Yeah,
That people are like they're barely making a rent, but they got to get these, whatever Jordans, like full posits or whatever was big back then, right? Um, this is a topic that I'd really like to explore with somebody in that culture, like who's been in it like for a long time. Like, how do you? Because it's such like it's delicate in a sense because it's become a part of like street culture, urban culture, and you don't want to like take that
sure.
away from people, but at the same time has there come to a point where it's become detrimental to you, like financially, where you're holding your family, you're setting your family back, you're doing things that you're like, where it's, and it just assume like, because when I was a kid, I'd always wonder how like kids in 7th, 8th grade had they were going to this, and I saw where they lived, and I was like, how are y'all getting like new gear all the time,
Yeah,
right?
living amongst their means, and that's
You
what
know,
capitalism does to you.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where it's if you think about it, and I wonder why this topic isn't addressed more. Like I love don't get me wrong, from a material point of view, I love the culture, but then
Yeah,
at the same time, I think about like, you know, like the implications of things and whatnot, and like I do see some issues. There's like a conflict there for some people, like not for everybody. Like I think everybody needs to um and like the way I assess it for myself is like, listen, I treat it like I have a percentage of it. If money is going to be tight, of course I'm not going to buy a pair of sneakers that are $200,
yeah,
right? It's like going to be a bonus thing or something. I'll buy something to see if it like will resell. Like if I can sell it and flip it on StockX or something or in a consignment shop, like I might not want it. And then what you do is you create a pool of money with the resale money, so to speak.
yeah,
And then you kind of use that. That's your like play money, and that's kind of how I operate. But I think a lot of people aren't people are just like, I gotta have it, and like I don't know when it started, like in the 70s, like during the era of the 50s and the 60s, during the time of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, like the civil rights era. I don't know how much. Like it definitely has been a scene. Like I think I've heard someone speak about this before. That being like because of what happened, like slavery and post-slavery, that there's always been an emphasis in like African American culture to be like to see, you got to at least show yourself as presentable, or like really, you know what I'm saying? The image is really critical for that, so it's, because even in Malcolm X, I don't know if you know, like you catch like the zoot suits and like the Conquer and all that, right? It seems like it's all like coming together. You follow what I'm saying? And now like maybe streetwear in some ways could be a the new manifestation of that. Of like it's almost like you've made this thing a part of your culture that for a lot of your community might be extremely detrimental.
I wouldn't attribute streetwear only to like a certain demographic. Like streetwear is most of the streetwear that we see today comes from a skateboarding culture. Skateboard, and like the one of the first streetwear brands was Stussy.
Right.
And that was like a surf culture. Supreme is a skateboarding brand. Obey is a skateboarding brand. What else?
What I'll say though is this though, the skateboard. So I grew up in an era when skateboarding and like those kind of brands weren't being like in the hood. But when I went to school in the hood back in like 8th grade, right? It was like Carl Kanai, Pele, like Tommy Hilfiger, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Rockaware, Sean John,
yeah,
et cetera. And all that existed because rap, right? But then when they realized that like that when they realized that rap isn't really a culture, but rap could be part of a culture. And rap fits very seamlessly within the skateboarding culture.
Right.
Because it's that same type of like renegade, kind of like I'm a renegade. I'm just like I'm a free spirit. I'm gonna just say what I want, do what I want. I'm a skate when it says don't skateboard. I'm a rap when it says don't rap, etc., etc. That's why they mesh very well. But a lot of these brands that we're seeing today that are still thriving, majority of them are skateboarding brands.
Right.
They were exclusive only to skateboarders.
Yeah. No, but I guess what? I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about the whole issue of. I think the point of like where people are. So what we can see we're seeing is that there's many people who are like in the streets who are living above their means to cop this hype piece of streetwear or gear or sneakers, right?
Yeah.
So we get that. Why do you? But I don't see that like conversation like really that be as being an issue. If that's an issue, then why do you think that's not like being spoken about?
Oh man, that's something that Frantz Fanon covers actually in his book.
Really?
Yeah, it's this thing of I think of cognitive dissonance. I would say that's a form of cognitive dissonance for sure. It's when you've bought into a structure so much so that it's gonna be your undoing, but you bought into it only so you could fit in within the status quo.
I think the other thing is though that sometimes when people want to talk about it, they try to downplay the like other like super racist effect, like things going on. It's like from a point of view of like, oh, it's black people do it to themselves because they overconsume. That's why maybe it's not
that's a whole nother like little
but maybe that's why it's not maybe that's why it's not brought up because it's used as because if you bring it up it's used as a weapon to flip on you kind of thing too, right? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud right now.
But then consumerism is no way exclusive to one race.
Right.
That has to like
but you've heard that argument before, right? I'm sure you have. Like people would say like, well, people they're in the hood, they should go get a job and they shouldn't spend all their money on sneakers. If they invested their money in like real estate, they would be, you know what I'm saying? You probably heard that kind of like, they use this kind of like rhetoric.
Yeah, but also but then remember how we're talking about when they were writing the Constitution, they wrote only if you own land then you can vote. That's on black people didn't own land. Yeah. So that argument within itself, you can literally connect it to the racist undertones that people had during like the Jim Crow South, during slavery, et cetera, because those, you know, the reason why the majority of the wealth here is owned by a very subset of people is it's literally manufactured and engineered that way.
And this mindset is being like transmitted through generations that, oh yeah, our people don't own land. We don't do that. So
no.
in that
No,
sense?
no, not that sense.
Because if you're conditioned that way, right, from the beginning, you're saying you're not allowed to own property, right? So is it a thing where over, because like for example, my dad used to tell me when I was in high school, he probably still says this. He's like, why would you go into business? Business is for white people. You'll never do well in business. You in America, you'd either be in science, right? Like there's this like it's actually being like, he actually says that. Like it's not like it's implied. He directly like would tell me that like you should not study business. You will not do well in business because you are not American. You are from Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
our
No,
people
no.
do it.
There was an article that came out about a non-white VC,
Yeah.
about a non-white person who had a company,
Right.
and all the VCs told him no, and one of the VCs told him, if you were white, this would be an obvious yes.
Right.
Like,
Right.
on paper, everything's great.
Mm-hmm.
I think you would have to talk to a black person about that, to be honest.
Yeah, like definitely, it's something I want. I need to talk. Like, there's a guy I want to get on named. I don't know if you're familiar with Dallas Penn. Dallas Penn is like an old. He's because in the sneaker streetwear scene, there's like these legends that are just known for like having like dope collections, right?
Yeah.
Like Mayer, Dallas Penn, DJ Clark Kent. Some of them are like well known, like music, like DJ Clark Kent, right? Dallas Penn's a dude who I think he works in construction. But he's interviewed like by GQ because he has like a ridiculous polo Ralph Lauren collection, and like a ridiculous sneaker and boot collection. So like, and they've been in it for like 30, 40 years, right? So I'd be curious, but he's also someone like when I follow his Instagram, he's also very like politically aware of what's going on.
Wow.
So I think that's kind of something
I'll have to look into him.
Yeah,
I'm not too familiar with him, but I also have I have a very weird, like, this is a very interesting thing too. I think the value of collectible sneakers, collectible streetwear, collectible clothing, etc. I think it's still being determined because I still don't see value in it. Like if I see like a $1 million Van Gogh piece, like there's no way that no way I would trade that for like $1 million collection of Nikes in a million years.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally don't see the value in it yet. So I'm actually learning more and more about, and that's why I kind of stopped reselling, because I didn't really believe it. I'm like, I'm just taking advantage of people that want to like wear these clothes. I'm not really bought into it. So I don't know how I really truly feel about that. But I think that's a very fascinating point. I think that's something that's still proven only because this resale market is brand new. Like streetwear, I know streetwear has been around for a long time, and Jordans were one of the first major shoes to be like people waiting in line for and people buying shoes off of people. And then we got Dunks.
Yeah.
Then we're getting like the LBJs, and then and now I bet the Kobe's, because he passed away. A lot of his shoes are probably now like a lot of hype is being around them. But you see what I mean? All that value is kind of like fades. Like Jordans, I feel like as people go away from Jordan and people like Steph Curry become in the limelight, and people like, and people start realizing that Jordan was actually like just like not really a great guy. Like Michael Jordan's a piece of shit. Everybody knows that. Like he's not a good person. Like people are gonna start like going away from their shoes. Like even now with high fashion and streetwear coming together, we see that like Jordans are becoming less and less of a commodity, especially because how many times they've been retroed, right? So like now if you're like, oh, I have a pair of like Space Jams, you're like, oh, which ones? Yeah. Because the ones that came out like a couple years ago suck. The ones that are about to come out this year are just ass. Yeah. Like who cares? They've been retroed so many times.
Right. And now they're doing this whole like Christian Dior Jordan 1, which is like absurdly expensive, right?
Yeah. Like even that, like that's how it's like now they're just appealing to consumers. So now they're just like, so now what are you buying? Are you buying what everyone's telling you to buy? Because that's what it looks like. Because Jordan,
Jordan's interesting because like I grew up in the Jordan era. That's when I really like I was middle school and high school and I was a Bulls fan. And I like I certainly understand the sentiment about Jordan not being a nice guy. I mean, it's become evident. People like this documentary. I don't know if you're following it, The Last Dance, but I think it's also
I didn't watch.
What happens is
I
that
don't have a TV.
you don't have a TV.
No.
So what's happening is that so you're right. The cycles like Last Dance. I think like people now are like wanting old school retro Bulls gear.
Yeah.
Like old Bulls jumpsuits. They want old Jordan, like stuff that he used to have. And it'll be cyclical.
Look how it came out.
Yeah.
It came out when Jordan is losing a lot of value in the consumer market.
But I think it's and then Kobe was kind of like standstill, but then his death, it's like I only have one pair of Kobe's. They're actually Reebok Kobe's. Because there was a year between Adidas and Nike. The Iverson, the Allen Iverson, the Question.
Yeah.
There's a Kobe Player Edition that came out a few years back.
Yeah.
And I have that pair. And that pair, I paid sale price for it, like under retail. And
you're on mute. You muted yourself. I can't hear you. Oh, there you go.
You hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, I think I need to replace my battery. I have to replace.
Can't hear you. I can't hear you.
How's that?
Yeah, that's better.
That's better. Okay. I was like, I think the thing the wire came loose.
Okay.
You good now? Okay, yeah. So the Reebok. I saw the price.
Wait, how much are they now? Those shoes?
Like $400. 400? Yeah, I saw them selling on StockX for like $400. But I'm like, I'm not even a Kobe fan, right? I became a fan after his death, to be honest, because I learned about who he was.
Yeah.
But like, I've always been a Jordan fan, right? And I think it's formative in the sense that like, and I'll be very frank, I'll justify whatever shortcomings he has as an individual because he was so like, my formative years growing up was like watching like Jordan as a player. And I'm like, I don't really like, I'm not concerned in that sense with that. And that I might be wrong in that sense, but I do think that it'll be a cycle when Jordan, it's time for him to pass. That you might see another spike.
Probably.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's what happens with that. So, and then people are always going to like, who knows? And I hope he like at least comes out in the future and like is a little bit more empathetic to certain things, right?
Yeah.
He certainly isn't on this. Even his documentary, he's pretty much doubling down on certain things.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not an actor. I'm not a role model. If that's what you were looking for, then you should maybe follow somebody else.
Yeah.
Which at least he's being honest. I think. I don't think.
Oh, that's someone that's arrogant. You know who's like that? Jerry Rice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I played his son in high school.
Okay.
I played his son, Jerry Rice Jr., Menlo College. We played them in high school football.
Yeah.
Jerry Rice is a prick.
Really?
He's the same way. Yeah. I mean, Michael Jordan the same way. It's this arrogance that comes when you're like a star of a team.
Yeah.
There's a certain arrogance that comes with it, and it's very it affects certain people in different ways.
The unfortunate thing about it though is this. I think I think Jordan's the greatest, like as far as basketball, the way he was able to win games and like push.
No way, he's not the greatest player. No way.
Yeah, no, that's for me. Way. Like, who's better?
That's a whole
another podcast. That's another podcast.
No. There's only one. Whoa, the greatest basketball player of all time is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
I kind of figured you would say that.
Yeah, like we like and look how he carries himself in today.
But it's not but like I'm talking about basketball. I'm not talking about like how he like personality. Yeah, but basketball itself.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is 100% a better basketball player than Jordan.
I would say okay. So I think longevity, right?
I think Kobe was a better player than Jordan.
No way.
Yeah.
No.
I think LeBron is a better player than Jordan.
I think it's a product of like you being like born in the 90s.
No way. No. No, LeBron's incredible. LeBron's a generational gift.
There's a talent-wise, so there's angles you can look at it, right? LeBron, as a talent perspective, his talent could be unparalleled, right?
And,
Like,
dude,
you know what I'm saying?
Any athlete within his generation.
Right. But Jordan was able, like, there's a thing, like, as much as I hate to say it, I can't argue the fact that in the NFL, Tom Brady people say he's the GOAT now, right? The greatest of all time because of how many rings, because it comes down to how many because these are all team sports. And how many times are you able to win championships? Muhammad Ali is seen as the greatest boxer because he's won the heavyweight title the most times. Like, he lost, like, the most amount of times, etc. Right?
Yeah.
What it comes down to is championships, right? And the amount of, and I don't know how many Kareem has won. Kareem's an all-time leading scorer, but I think over the course of like a 20-year career, I think he's close, in that sense. But LeBron, I just think, has not shown, like, Jordan has willed his teams to win. That's the thing about
Jordan.
him.
Jordan
think
had
the
an
fact that he's a
amazing
prick.
supporting cast.
Sorry?
Pippen, Rodman.
Well, I mean, people always, there's no one ever wins solo. Like, even LeBron, like Kyrie.
Rodman, I think Rodman averaged like, what, 15 rebounds a game?
He actually didn't do. I just watched the last 98 finals this past
15 rebounds a game. How do you not win like that?
But they were owning. They're playing. LeBron's had his guys like Tristan, like, who, people that chip in, right? But not to like digress this, because we're now delving into an area that could be kufr. Everything else was like, coach. Now
I can't hear you again. I can't hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
You can hear me now. Okay.
Yeah.
This probably is a sign that we should wrap this up.
Okay.
Your favorite pair of sneakers?
Let me show them to you. I'll be right back. Give me a second. All right. So I have. Do you know this brand called Brain Dead?
No, I don't.
So Brain Dead made a collab with Chuck,
Okay.
All-Star Converse, and this is them. And right here, right along, it says, "Who controls the control men? The same elsewhere. To see and be seen as far as the eye can see. Who controls the control men? The same elsewhere." So it's the company Brain Dead. It's like a collective of artists and designers that come together, and all their clothing and all their collaborations are very politically and socially aware. So it really speaks to my essence as a person. I can't hear you.
How about now?
Yeah. What are your favorite sneakers? I can't hear you again. No. Come on, let's do it like 2 more minutes. Can it last 2 minutes?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Air Jordan 11.
Okay, the 11s. Okay, that's cool. I have a pair of the 11s. I can't hear you.
The battery's about to.
Okay, all right, man. All right, Salam. Thank you, man.